And Steve, that's where babies come from.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
That's not what I heard.
If you need to know more biology, just let me know.
Not what I heard.
Okay.
Oh, hi,
all right.
everyone.
Hello.
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 Welcome everyone to Wednesday.
It's
Let's do the music right
Wednesdays.
away. Music right away. Boom.
All right, first.
Okay.
In
fine.
the
You do
chat,
first.
somebody wrote, "Open the pod bay doors, Dave." No, and I don't know if they were serious. It's "Open the pod bay doors, please." Hal. Said by Dave, and Hal responds, "I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave.
That's right.
All right.
You can't misquote 2001
Sure,
in
you
my
can.
house."
No.
Okay.
Well,
and
they are-
it's
all right.
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
November 5th, some would say.
Okay.
And today we're going to talk about Christian Hubicki.
Mr. Hubicki.
Mr. Christian.
Mr. Christian.
Hello. Am I visible or am I a ghost?
you're
Will be
auditory.
visible. Wait till I finish. Hold on.
Oh,
We will
Jump
talk
in the
about-
queue. Always
I'm
jump in
so
the
sorry.
queue. That's Christian.
You will talk about Grokopediaphilia, which is just a joke. anyway.
Sounds nasty.
Yeah, sounds inappropriate. Bill Gates keeping,
Yes.
maybe, and a little TikTok. Sorry, that's enough. Now we can go right to Mr. Christian Hubicki.
There he
There he
is.
is.
Hey there,
sir.
Christian.
Hello. Good to be here. Bob, Jay, and Steve. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
Great.
Good.
Glad to hear it. I am also fine.
Okay,
It's
very
good to see that you survived, at least physically.
That's the
What?
first time I've ever heard that joke. Steve.
Yeah, we're not. I know.
I hate when
We're not going to talk about that. But we're not going to talk about that.
Now nobody
Well, we're
knows
here
what's
to
going
talk-
on. All right, first of all, Christian is a roboticist.
I thought you were going to say it was a robot.
No, he is a robot. We don't.
Oops.
You can't look. If he's a robot, he doesn't want the world to know.
All right.
And he's not a would you consider an android a robot?
Yes.
Okay, Christian, are
An
androids
android is a
considered robots?
subtype of robot.
Yeah.
And then there's
all
a-
androids are robots. Not all robots are androids.
Right.
Okay.
And then there's
that's
a
where I was going.
humaniform robot, which is an android that looks indistinguishable from a human.
But I thought androids were like supposed to be humanoid.
They were humanoid, but they could be recognized. Like Data's an android, but he's not humaniform because you could look at him
Right.
and tell he's an android.
Okay.
To be fair, humaniform is purely from what's his name? Asimov.
Asimov.
It's Asimov.
And that's a detriment. That's
no,
enough.
it isn't. But my question to Christian is have you ever heard humaniform in the context of an android that's indistinguishable from a human?
I'll tell you, I'll be honest, like in all of my professional conversations with other roboticists, the amount of times we talked about the definition of something that's an android versus humaniform, I could probably count on one finger.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's one of the discussions that happens in more in the sci-fi world than like the
Yeah.
why is a robot not moving world.
Yeah, because we're not there yet, obviously, because it isn't
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
the sci-fi.
So-
Worrying about distinguishing the androids and humaniform is like for 100 years from now. It's not a.
Well,
it's
Yeah,
not
I
a-
right.
interpreted
Just a-
that was Christian very politely saying, "We don't give a shit about that. We don't, what the hell?" But wait, I have more questions. Just general stuff here. So,
Sure.
if an android is supposed to have some human qualities,
Yes.
again, we're having fun with science fiction here, and then
love it.
a robot is anything that's mechanical.
Yeah, my Roomba is a robot.
But now, where's the tipping point between cyborg and robot?
Well, cyborg is a cybernetic organism which has to have some biological parts.
But would there be a point when you'd say like it's more robot, like like
Sure.
It can't be more robot. It has to be all robot to not be a cyborg.
so it can't be any biology.
That's right.
Yeah, but if you're a robot with, say, a forearm muscle and that's it,
Yeah, I wouldn't call
yeah,
it.
I wouldn't necessarily
still a
call it-
cyborg.
I wouldn't really necessarily
Yeah,
call
you're
that a
a cyborg.
cyborg.
Yeah, but
Well, I mean, when it comes to like the literature, like there are people like if you were to publish on a robot that had like one muscle tendon unit, and you're like, I'm doing something interesting with this muscle tendon unit, it would be promoted as like biological robot research, right? Like that's what it would be promoted, because that's probably what it's focusing on, right? There was a study I feel for a couple of years ago that these researchers used as robotic gripper a dead spider that they actuated to grip it. I might remember this one just because of how creepy it looked. It probably made all the news, right? So like, I mean, that's I guess that's a bionic robot. I mean, often we don't obsess about these definitions except when you're in the revision stage of your paper that you're trying to put out. But it's, I mean, like really you focus on like, what does this deliver for the field? What does this enable now? But right now, I mean, we're still not close to something that would pass for human. Although I would say that there are robots that would pass for as people in like a robot suit. Like there are robots out there that you could and we're not even talking about Elon Musk putting a dancer in a robot costume. You know, like one of the videos I brought with me today actually is probably a good example of that. But anyway, that's other questions, Jay.
I haven't. Well,
office hours are open.
I'm listening.
You know, I do have unlimited access to you, but I don't abuse it because I like to save a lot of questions for when other people can listen. So my question I've been dying to ask you is, because it's been, I don't know, like we haven't really talked about robots in a year maybe. Has AI actually enhanced and accelerated, improved, you know, I don't know if you're using LLMs or whatever, but I just want to know, what is the general influence on AI in your industry?
In the industry, so that's a big question. You kind of have to be more specific. We had to like drill down in specifics to answer that question. Like,
I'll give you a little bit more of a target here.
Sure. No, that's fine. You can give me a target, or I can just go and do whatever you want.
I want you to go. That's what I like.
Okay. All right. That's dangerous, but we'll do it. But but yeah. So no, I mean, like just from like a day-to-day operations standpoint, like so for those who don't know, I'm a robotics professor. I run a robotics lab. I do robotics research. I teach and such. And so like I have students who are trying to make robots, you know, function better in the real world. And often I focus on legged robotics for the most part, humanoid robots that walk on two legs. We do have some quadrupedal robots. And just from a practical standpoint, people will use a large language model to help them code. And these are often the students that are like already really good at coding. And they know when they get an autocomplete from the LLM, they're like, yeah, that's what I want. Boom, autocomplete. That's what I got. It's going to do what I want it to do. It's, but the students who get the most out of that are the students who already know how to code already and they know what they're looking for. The students who are just learning, and when I students, I mean grad students, like the ones actually doing the research in the laboratory, right? Yep. In terms of impact for students that are less experienced, we're talking undergraduate students who are just learning how to code. It's, in my anecdotal experience, highly detrimental, because they will just ask, I want a code that does this thing, and they'll get a pile of code. Maybe it does the thing, maybe it doesn't do the thing. They're basically vibe coding, as the as people say, and they don't learn anything. Right. And often they're doing it for assignments that are designed to like make them do the assignment so they learn it, but it's not so complicated that people have it done 1,000 times on the internet already. So the algorithm's already highly trained, not in general, but already probably on this exact problem. So again, that's just as a teacher, but in terms of robotics in general, you're probably talking at the research stage, right? Right. Yes. So you're talking AI, and you know what I'll do? You know, Steve. Yeah. So peer behind the curtain. Steve asked me if this was real at all, and actually, I'm going to use to demonstrate today that it kind of is. All right. Okay. You have this little diagram up here. Yep. It's that little Venn diagram I can't point at because my arm is going to get out of its socket, right? So you have sort of the subset. Like AI is basically anything that's going to be making a decision, which can be, you know, like technically your calculator could be considered AI, but that's not what people mean. They mean a subset, which is not only deep learning, but what we'll call foundation models. That's like a large language model, right? So do people use things like large language models in robotics? Absolutely, yes. It is currently these foundation models, specifically ones that are designed for robot manipulation, are huge right now. They are the people who are in search of a general purpose robot. Right now, robots are highly specialized. They're in the factory. It's a pick and place robot that's going to weld the car. Boom, does that thing over and over and over again. And so there's a lot of people trying to search for general intelligence for these robots, because these large networks are really good at generalizing based upon specific examples if you do it right. Okay. And so these manipulation tasks, like if you see a robot that is trying to do something like in a home, or trying to pick up a teapot, or try to open a dishwasher, it's doing one of two things. One, it's a person teleoperating it, remote controlling it. All right. That's number one. It could be that. Or two, it is using what we call a diffusion policy, which has given many examples of that robot having been teleoperated, and stitches them together using AI. One of these foundation models is kind of either a diffusion model or a diffusion transformer, and it's executing what we call a policy. It's taking in vision data. It's taking in data from where its arms are, the so-called proprioception, right? And as a result, executing, trying to do that task. And as we talked about in the past, when I showed up on your podcast last year to talk about Elon's latest robot extravaganza, where he had robots being teleoperated, right? The question is one of how reliable is it? And can we make it more reliable with more data? And that is a big question right now that we have some evidence for. More evidence is emerging that it could work, but you have to be really careful, but we don't know how far it'll scale.
So I guess to make my question a little bit more like generic, right?
Yeah.
In general, though, has there been any like big breakthrough thing like, wow, because of AI, like we've accelerated like an incredible amount, or now this thing that we've been trying to do for the last 10 years, we just figured it out in 2 days. Like, is any of that happening?
100%. Yeah. Like, to be clear, like the robotics has accelerated massively in the last 5-6 years because of deep learning methods, and beyond that, foundation models, which are even bigger, sort of badder version of these deep learning methods. That they're the generative stuff. So, like for instance, so for those who don't know the phrase, I don't know if you throw it around the phrase foundation model on the podcast when you're talking about AI.
Not much.
But like that's the superset of things like ChatGPT, like a large language model, or a generative model like a stable diffusion, that like the DALL-E, right? Those generative methods, they're all examples of foundation models. That's the buzzword for it. So if people are asking you in your daily life, you're like, oh, what do you think of AI? And you want to sound super snooty, you could be like, oh, do you mean foundation models? You mean the cool stuff that's been coming out in the last 6 years? And then if you want to find a new friend, you could say that. And so, yes, so deep learning, which is the bigger of the bubbles. I'm going to point at it. Okay. Right there.
Gotcha.
The bigger, and inside of its foundation models, you probably barely see it on my camera, right?
So neural nets, right? Neural nets?
Yeah, they're the neural nets. So deep neural nets, that's huge. I mean, one, we couldn't do computer vision without it. You couldn't say, hey, that's a cat, right? Like that was like in my image. And further, deep reinforcement learning requires that deep learning. And that's where a lot of the best locomotion stuff comes out. Like if you see a robot doing a backflip in the last like 2 years, or doing all kinds of cool locomotion stuff, that's deep learning.
Yep.
That is only possible because of AI, right?
And that's essentially trial and error, right? Making predictions based on trial and error, right? That's what, when you're talking about deep reinforcement learning, that's another way.
Correct.
To describe it.
Christian, so like, for example, Boston Dynamics, I remember you and I were really getting into it at one point, and we saw the guy doing parkour, the robot doing parkour, and you're like, yeah, but you got to keep in mind, like, you're seeing the video they're showing you, that robot probably fell 100 times, and of course you're not going to see that when they give like these big demo videos. So has anything like that where all of a sudden they let AI handle something, and now it's 50% more stable or more capable, and any of that going on?
So a couple of things. So like the classic Boston Dynamics Atlas doing parkour actually does not require any neural networks for the control itself. For the vision, yes. For the control, not. It's actually a much more traditional approach that they call model predictive control, where you're just taking the physics and you're trying to predict it forward and say, what's the best way to keep moving in that direction? right? And Boston Dynamics was actually one of the later adopters of deep reinforcement learning for their control, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They switched over only in the last 12 months or so in earnest, because everyone was doing really well with it. But does it make it more reliable? It's hard to tell because roboticists don't publish a lot of statistics on how the robots walk. We just don't. It's still a nascent field. It's almost a YouTube field. I mean, there are real papers doing real methods, and we'll show real data and charts and plots for how the learning works. But to do a large enough sample on how well your robot's walking, the robots generally break before you have a chance to collect that kind of data. So I mean, it's I was sitting in a thesis defense yesterday, and someone presented a p-value with their work. I said, congratulations on doing enough data that you could collect p-values.
Right.
Wow. So I mean, it's now that's not everyone. I'm sorry, I'm going to try not to veer off your question too much, Jay. So one thing that the deep reinforcement learning methods have been really good at is just getting the robot exposed to so many different scenarios and coming up with contingencies for what to do in those scenarios that it has incredible balance.
Got it.
And so and the thing that the previous methods, let's call them physics-based methods, where the robot would have to think about the physics in real time and say, what should I do now to help myself now to get myself back up? That's the more traditional approach. Those things didn't work so well when you had to change contact points with the ground over and over again. Like if you had to shuffle your feet on the ground to pick yourself back up, it wasn't very good at that, because every time it would have to change the contact point, it would have to change the physics, and it would change the calculations, and it would all build up to something that was just not possible to keep up with. Whereas if you train all this stuff beforehand in a computer simulation and train a neural network to handle it, it was able to all of a sudden it's able to respond to situations where the ground contacts change. So you can look online. There are videos of robots doing kick flips off walls, and the way they can do that is because of the deep reinforcement learning methods. Now, how reliable is it? There isn't a lot of great hard data. I'll see preliminary papers that say, "Hey, we did it 5 out of 6 times," and as a research method, I'm like, "That's good. That's good." Yeah. And sometimes they'll take them to conferences and do live demos, and they're like, "Hey, our robot did 10 cartwheels in a row." That's great. That's good. But again, to make these things into a product, to do the things you need them to do when you want to count on them to do them, that's still an open challenge within the field.
Yeah, you're not going to bring anything that's out there right now. And this is, if you're not detecting it, this is a segue to talking about some specific robots. Are we able to bring any of these robots into the home yet?
No, with a minor caveat. I mean, there are companies that are trying, but there's not a robot that you can buy now that you should trust in your home to do anything useful. In fact, I would be surprised if it was anything more than a hassle for you. It would be a net negative on your productivity, probably to have to deal with this robot.
Well, you're not talking about Roombas. I mean, I have a Roomba.
No, they're all right.
They're fine. It works.
Yeah,
great.
the Roombas are fine. Well, I thought we were talking. Sorry, I'm talking about humanoid robots.
No, you're talking about
humanoid.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Humanoid robots. So,
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize, Steve.
That's right. You didn't qualify. I
thinking,
wanted to know how broad are you getting. You're just talking about. You're still just restricting it to humanoid robots.
I showed it to humanoids probably because I provided a bunch of links to humanoids doing these things. But I have a Roomba too. Roomba's fine.
Yeah.
Roomba's fine. The reason that the Roomba's fine is because its task is very limited.
It's very limited.
It's very limited. It can't even do much to your house. I mean, it's hard to concoct a scenario where the Roomba causes damage to your home,
right,
or things. I mean, it can knock over a broom, which then knocks over a tea kettle that's hot. That's a pretty crazy scenario, but it's technically possible, but very hard, right? But for something that is generally intelligent in your home, no, there's to be useful. To generally intelligent. I thank you for clarifying, Steve. I just misinformed you.
That's right. Well, we got to talk about Neo at this point,
we
right?
need to.
I mean, we got to talk about Neo now.
Yeah, because that's what we're building to. The 1X Neo robot. That's what everyone's talking about. That's what I've been trying to crank out a response video to for the past 4 days.
So, Ian, can you just show us a video of Neo, just so we can
number
see?
one?
Yeah, we'll
Clip
go
one,
to
maybe?
number 1. So let's just screen share. You should be able to see this as well. So Neo, the home robot.
Nice delivery.
Not DiGiorno.
And he comes out of the box.
Hey, I'm Neo. I'm here to help around the house. What's your name?
Harry.
Nice to meet you, Harry. When you have a question or want something done, just let me know.
Which one's the
They
robot?
only deliver it to hot people, by the way. I'm not sure if you.
We're in trouble.
We gotta have 3 up there.
Well,
We built the chores feature to give you your time back.
So yeah,
You
so
give your
I-
Neo a list of chores.
I'll pause it. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can probably fast forward a little bit maybe to see what it's supposed to do. I think like it just past this guy talking, like the show trying to do some household tasks. Basically, maybe I should narrate because I can cut to the chase. Because this is like this is their announcement video that came out like a week ago.
Yeah.
And I was on jury duty at the time, which was very annoying because I wanted to
my
be able
God.
to craft to craft a response to this, but like this. So this is the first company, 1X, to actually sell a humanoid robot that they tell you is going to do chores for you. You can buy a humanoid robot. You can buy a humanoid robot for for maybe a decade or so for a lot of money, and they would not claim it would do anything useful for you. This one, they claim that it can. It will do household chores for
That
chores for you.
fact
That's what they
alone,
claim.
that there is a company that is saying, I'm going to sell you a general purpose humanoid robot soon, like within a year. They have it. They're demoing it. The fact that that is happening now makes me so happy. Even though there's lots of limitations and problems, the fact that this is happening makes me inordinately
It's
happy.
exciting.
It's so exciting
But-
that we
but
are
it-
now
but-
at that point.
Is it?
Okay, but is it real? I mean, meaning that can it really do stuff, and how good can it do it? Is it going to
Well,
be
that's-
more of a pain in the ass?
That's the
as
conversation.
Christian says?
That's the conversation.
Yeah, that's the
I mean,
conversation.
really, you're
So
going to
that's
let
kinda
it
like-
empty your dishwasher? I don't know about that.
The thing is, like, I have so many thoughts on this whole announcement.
I
My
know.
first thought was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. There's like no way this thing is ready. But then you realize, but then like they actually had an the CEO gives an interview, and this man he seems like a card. This guy, one thing that becomes clear is that yes, it'll try to do these things autonomously, but if it can't, it'll be teleoperated by a dude in Palo Alto
Yeah.
to finish the job. And it's like, okay, of course,
There you
this
go.
is
That's
all
the
starting to
con.
make sense. Yeah, and as a result, like, and one thing I will give the company credit for is they're upfront about this for the most part.
Absolutely.
And they actually arranged an interview with a tech reporter from the Wall Street Journal to come out and view the robot. That's actually unusual for these domestic robots. There are other companies that are claiming to want to deliver domestic, home robots for you, and they'll put out great videos, but they won't do videotaped demos for the press. There's a company called Figure AI that put out a beautiful video 3 weeks ago. This field is moving so fast. It's crazy. It feels like eternity ago. 3 weeks ago, Figure AI. I think that's video like number. It's down at the bottom there. If you want to get to it at some point there, Ian.
Yeah, okay.
But they were on Time Magazine's like Invention of the Year, like their cover. And then there was an article that came out in Time Magazine with basically one of the reporters and said, "Hey, I felt the need to put out this to put out this that's the one, right?" And they put out this video, but then Time Magazine had another article that said, "Hey, I just got to point out, I watched the robot in person, and it is not as reliable as they would have you believe from these videos." It's basically the exact same thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like it's more data that this is how it is, right? So, but they're trying to do things seemingly entirely autonomously. But like, again, you can pick the ones that work. And so here you can see what they're doing here, assuming that it is autonomous and we're not being hoaxed by saying it's actually a teleoperated.
Yeah.
It's doing what we call a diffusion policy. It's that AI method that we're talking about, Jay, right?
Yep.
There were a lot of examples of what you want it to do, and you can prompt it, say, pick up the laptop, and identifies laptop, picks up the laptop. Incredible that it can do this at all. We wouldn't have been able to do this 5 years ago. In fact, even less than that, it's less than 3 years ago. There's a paper that came out on what's called diffusion policies in 2023 that really showed how that you can basically do demonstrations and turn them into this algorithm. And now companies are running from it. We're running with this. They're running with this as a method. And that's just like over 2 years ago, not that long ago, right? Crazy how fast this stuff moves. So it's crazy, right?
Which robot is that? Which robot is that?
So this is the figure. This is the figure 3. This is Figure AI's figure 3. They just unveiled it 3 weeks ago. Okay, I'll point out that this research is funded largely by National Science Foundation. By the way, the research that basically kicked off this entire thing, National Science Foundation, also industry backing from Toyota Research Institute.
Are they still getting money at this point?
That was back in 2023, so who knows?
Okay.
But also private funding. There are private research institutes that are really trying to dig into these questions as to how to make these robots better. But then there are people trying to sell products. And that's what you're seeing here with Figure AI. That's what you're seeing with the Neo, which is the other video.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, go on. I'm sorry. I went on for a while.
So with Neo, let me see if I get bottom line Neo as I understand it right now. So with Neo, the demos that they're doing now, that they could do now, still requires a lot of teleoperation. They need somebody in the loop to do even basic things like emptying or filling a dishwasher. The CEO says that when they release this to the general public, that first off, it's going to be there's a social contract that there will be teleoperation happening, but you will be notified exactly when, and you make an appointment to have a teleoperation happening. So it's not going to just do it willy-nilly. So that you're aware of the social contract, and if you rent it or buy it, you have to agree. This is part of it. This is the deal. He says that he hopes by next year, most of what it can do autonomously. But sometimes it's going to need, for more complex tasks, it's going to need teleoperation. So that's the crux right there. When it's released to the public, how much can it do autonomously, and how much is going to need teleoperations? That's the critical point right there, I think, that's going to determine how successful this thing is. If it still requires tons of teleoperation and it just doesn't complete these tasks hardly ever, it's going to be a laughingstock like Google Glass, I think.
And at that point, I'd just hire a person to do the stuff, right? Because I'll tell you what,
for $20,000, you know what kind of services you can get by humans?
But it's not just the $20,000, because there's no way that they're going to sell you this robot and then have people for the life of the robot be teleoperating it for you. Like there's got to be a subscription.
Yeah,
and that subscription price is probably huge.
So according to the pricing that you can down payment for, it's $20,000 for 3 years of service. Mm-hmm. Okay, which is pretty typical for a robot. You don't expect the robot to go much longer than 3 years of this complexity. When I get robots from my labs, they typically have a 3-year warranty, or it's $500 a month. That's the way that they structure it. So you're right, Jay, that it's not a sustainable business model to have a ton of people teleoperating these robots constantly at scale. I mean, and they claim they'll all be located inside the United States. I mean, but at some point, imagine that if they wanted to scale this up, they're outsourcing this.
Yeah,
they're going to outsource this. But I think, one thing I do want to say is that, like, you're right, Bob. Like, the teleoperation is supposed to be a backup. They claim it's going to be most tasks. How are you going to quantify most?
Yeah, right.
And what do you mean will be completed? There's a lot of fudging you can do to make that number real if you really want it to. Like, what's is it the number of tasks by how frequently they're done, or just total numbers of different tasks? What do you like? It's really fungible. But not only is teleoperation the backup, it's the point. Mm-hmm. I submit that it is the point of all this. That they basically, unless their autonomy is so good, which it isn't, they admit like that it's not very good right now. The CEO was asked, like, did you ask Steve, will it unload my dishwasher? And the CEO said, on a good day, depending on how you load it.
Yeah.
So that's from the CEO himself, right?
Yeah.
In order to make it do better, what do they need? They need more data. More data of what? Teleoperated demonstrations. The exact thing that they train their policies on. How are they going to get that? From you. You're paying $20,000
to train their robots.
But that said, still, that they've done thousands of like virtual simulated environments in the physics-based simulations, right? They've done that at this point. They've already created this foundation of ability through virtual simulations, right? So these robots have already been probably, almost certainly, right, in a virtual kitchen, unloading and loading dishwashers, on a computer. So they've already done that. And they've probably already taken a lot of these robots home. Like, hey, you have to take the robot home tonight and have it unload your dishwasher and give us the data, right? I'm sure that's probably happened as well. It makes me less confident on how good the simulated training is for these robots, considering that the demo that I saw, they couldn't even really empty a dishwasher without some help. So how good is this virtual training doing? I would think that would get it 90% of the way there. It doesn't seem like it's even close.
Well, that's great. That's a great point, Bob. So, like, this virtual training for locomotion, the walking, the running up walls, it's pretty darn good. It's really there's still some art to how you transfer the knowledge from the sim to the real. As my students would tell you, it's not just automatic. It takes some art to do, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. In contrast, for household tasks, there are papers that will say, like, hey, this policy in the simulation, it told us was going to be really good. It was not a good indicator of whether or not, like, for manipulation tasks with your hands in a kitchen and it was not a very good indicator of how the real world version would work. You have to do the experiments. So it probably because the physics of how you interact with picking up a dish is going to be more subtle than whether or not you have to stomp your foot on the ground just to keep yourself from falling down. The physics are much more coarse, less fine-tuned.
Right.
So you can get away with the slop in the physics there is less important than for squeezing a ketchup bottle and making sure you don't drop it, for instance. Right. But I will say there have been some very careful studies by some research institutes. So, for instance, the Toyota Research Institute was one of the first early adopters of these methods. They funded some of the earlier versions of this. Full disclosure, they also funded some of my research for a time, but on a different subject. But I think they do really good work. And they just came out this year with a paper where they called it a careful analysis of how these diffusion policies work when you add more data. And what they found was, like, when you're really, really careful about the statistics, when you add more data, you see a smooth improvement in performance and reliability. It hasn't gotten super high yet, but there's a smooth performance for now in performance and reliability. However, you have to be so careful about how you evaluate how well it's doing, so that when you're making decisions about, how you tweak this in the model, that you're not just capturing noise in the performance, right? Otherwise, you can just throw yourself in a terrible direction, right? So you have to. So for the point that we're at right now with the algorithms, like, it goes up and up. Like, we think it's going to get better and better, but it's going to get us all the way there. We don't know. I mean, people thought that about ChatGPT 5. And that was sort of a situation where a lot of people were very disappointed that if we thought we could scale this up bigger, and it was going to get better. And GPT-5 was a disappointment in that regard, right? So we don't know where that ceiling is.
Is there anyone concerned about the security issue of having a teleoperated robot in your home? I mean, there are certainly nightmare scenarios of somebody hacking into your robot and using it to do, all sorts of mischief. But
let's face it, the guy operating it is very likely to be high when he's doing it, right? So I'm not too.
Security in general is it's becoming an increasing concern, Steve. I mean, there's, I will say, blanket statements about, like, putting a robot in your home. I mean, you guys don't need to be told. You talked about, I think, in your book, how unstructured you're how unstructured.
It's a hard environment.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, we're going for this. Like, now it's like, it's a very, all of these general robotics problems are different types of hard. And this is a very hard one. Just as we'll put a marker in here, Elon Musk had a sales call, had an earnings call this quarter that I listened into, where he talked about, like, these just robots. And it's funny, the kind of the ways that he's talked about all these different applications that he's going to do, and that's its own story. But in terms of security and safety, there are tons of safety concerns. I will give the 1X company credit.
Yeah,
they think through a lot of these things. They made the robot pretty lightweight. 66 pounds for a 5.5 foot tall robot is pretty darn lightweight, and they try to make it soft. So I think, like, that's one of the things I worry about the most. What happens if the robot falls? Now, I still want it near my baby. Fall on my baby, I wouldn't want that. But they put some thought into it. But, like, security, cybersecurity is its own thing. In fact, there are all of the, not necessarily for this company, although it would be super relevant what you're talking about, Steve. People are buying robots from a lot of companies. Some of them are happen to be based out of China, and people have been looking at the security of these robots that they're buying, and they found they can be potentially remote operated from a remote location.
You
Yeah.
never know.
You never that basically, I'm not a cybersecurity guy. I can't speak on this with expertise, but there were a variety of papers of varying quality that were talking about some of the cybersecurity vulnerabilities of these papers. That allegedly one of these like little robot dogs, like someone managed to connect to the network of a robot dog off in another laboratory at Harvard and say, oh, I can see that. I could potentially connect to that. Right. So like, and that's just a straight up cybersecurity concern. Like you're putting all these robots out there. How secure are they? Again, I am not an expert in cybersecurity, but I know it is an increasing concern. Like we will put some of our robots on their own standalone air gap networks just in case.
Yeah.
Not the big, we'll just do that. I'm not sure I don't know if I'm being paranoid or not, but like I'm not qualified enough to know. I'm not a cybersecurity guy.
Yeah.
I certainly would want to be like there are all kinds of things when you take a robot like this and you put it in your house, both physical safety concerns and also cybersecurity concerns, I would be concerned about.
Yeah,
the only people that I think would buy this thing are like the most diehard early adopters who want to set $20,000 on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the movie writes itself, right? I mean, you have, this is like, you could parse it different ways. This could be a way of invading a country to sell them a bunch of robots that you then, at some point, you take over their operation, and you have an army inside, an enemy
Like the Orville.
country.
Yeah.
Right.
The Orville subplot there with those.
Yeah.
iRobot, the movie iRobot, like.
But you don't need AI to do it, right? With Teleoperation, people can do it.
Well, there's a couple things here that I think are interesting. One, teleoperating a robot, right? So you have the company and they're saying, yeah, we'll have our people do it. And you don't know who's running the robot from day one to day two. It's not like you have a relationship with the teleoperator. As a matter of fact, I bet you that they're told like, don't interact and get to know people. Like you got to like make it like you are a robot, right? They're not going to be like, hey, notice that your car needs, it's like they're not going to allow their people to do that. So you don't know who it is.
Plus, how about this?
I was in the middle of something.
The robot can see, right? It has.
Yeah, can see.
So that means they could just spy on you whenever they want.
Of course. The other thing is, I don't know, Christian, if you were talking about like just a teleoperator or the idea that someone could literally hack the teleoperated robot, like some other third party can come in and control that or see it. And and again, this is like a setting in the app probably, like, turn on or turn off teleoperation. To me, if it's all software, then it's hackable. Mm-hmm. I want like a big plungy switch on the back of the robot that's like, when this switch is down, it can be teleoperated, and when it's not, it cannot be operated.
You could put it right next to the evil switch.
Yeah, somebody had this big switch to evil. Right.
Go on. I'm sorry, Jay. Continue.
I'm just saying, is that like what you're thinking as well? Like it's not just the teleoperator, the legit teleoperator, but it could be hacked by an outside third party.
I can't rule out that possibility. And again, I don't want to expound too much on that because that's not my area as to how plausible that sort of thing is. But I do know that there are a lot of concerns about some robots being sold to laboratories as to how secure their software is. It doesn't necessarily mean it's malicious, that it's a Trojan horse. It could just be sloppy coding that's open to vulnerabilities. That's totally a possible thing, right? But is that such a thing possible? I would not rule it out. That's for people who are cybersecurity people. I more look at where interfaces with the real world kind of thing, because theoretically, I mean, your Roomba has little has sensors on it, right? I forget which models might have cameras or not. Theoretically, those things are connected to the internet. Could they look in your house? They could, if it has a camera on it. When it comes to Steve, spying on you, I mean, the company tries. They try to anticipate a lot of these questions, but it's very hard for them because because one thing is like, well, we automatically blur faces. We automatically blur faces, but like, some of my credit cards are like things are in a drawer, that they have access to, it's like there's automatically blur credit cards. I mean, I'm sure they could maybe make it do that, but there's also just general safety concerns. Like the reporter, the Wall Street Journal reporter, I thought did a pretty good job of asking good questions of the company that put them on the spot. And one of which was, what's stopping the robot from, turning on the burner and throwing some paper on your stove,
right?
And the CEO is like, it won't do that. And I was like, well, that's not. It's like there's multiple layers of safety. I'm like, okay, well, can we be specific about those multiple layers of safety? And for some of them, he is, right. Like, because the robot can lift a surprising amount of weight, for instance. Like, it's 66 pounds, but it can lift apparently up to 150 if it's posed correctly. And she's like, well, could it pick up like a table and drop it on my head when I'm napping? And he's like, it's like, well, it won't be allowed to pick up anything heavy. I was like, well, you just bragged about how much heavy stuff it can pick up. It's not allowed. And then it's like, it's not allowed to lift up anything heavy. It's not allowed to lift up anything hot.
Okay.
And it's not allowed to pick up anything sharp. Like heavy, you could safely get rid of heavy. Like that's something you could do. You just normal physics. You could say, I will only let my motors put out so much torque. That's just an if statement in the code. That's not that hard, right? There's ways to do that kind of thing. Hot, I'm assuming they must have some kind of temperature gun sensor in the eyes or something, like to be able to determine the hot thing. You're looking at a kettle and you know that's hot. I would assume that's what they would need to be able to do that. But sharp, I think it's more. You have to say it won't pick up anything it assesses as sharp.
Right.
How does it know? I mean, you could look at it like, oh, that thing is a knife. I know from lots of examples that's a knife, but there are lots of things that are sharp in your home that aren't necessarily knives or look like they're sharp, or it could be it could be poking out of a garbage bag and things like that. Right. So it's a daunting challenge to make a robot safe, not accounting for the fact that, look, I work in legged robotics. These robots fall down all the time. They just do.
Yeah.
And even if it's a 66-pound robot, even if it's soft, I wouldn't want it falling on my dog. You know,
of course.
So,
Right.
Yeah, and like, you know, as absurd as this sounds, you know, you have a teleoperator that could have it pick up a knife, and you've got, you know, I mean, look, and you know me, Christian, I'm so excited to have like the real like companion robot thing going on in my life, because I just think, you know, I've wanted that since I was a child.
It's one of the few iconic future things.
Yeah.
Flying car, jetpack, robot in the house.
But this teleoperational thing, like I'm surprised that I haven't really thought about it before. Like I've had it kind of pass through my head, or movie made me think a little bit, but like never really, like somebody, you know, in California is going to be driving one of these things, and then all the safeguards that the CEO was saying go away, right? They just go away. You know, there are not 3 laws of robotics operating. Like that whole concept is great, and it's great science fiction, but it's not happening, and it's probably never really going to happen that way. It's never going to be so cut and dry. Like Christian was saying, like you could build a Lego that has the shape of a kitchen knife. And, you know, to the robot, it might consider that sharp. Well, okay, you know, that sucks because it couldn't clean the room with that. And it certainly can't take a knife out of your dishwasher, but the guy operating it, who's high, most certainly could pick up anything it wants. And I don't like that.
One thing I'll point. Yeah, one thing really struck me about this whole announcement was how quickly the backlash came. To this. And I mean, like I have a hard time predicting exactly how the public's going to respond to robotics news, because there's been such a hype cycle about humanoid robotics. Like there are like index funds. I'm not a finance guy. I don't know the direct term, that are specifically designed to target humanoid robotics companies to bet on the future of humanoid robotics now, like on the real stock market.
Cool.
And like I was actually contacted by a finance cable news channel to talk about humanoid robotics. Ultimately, the piece didn't get filmed. But like, to the point where I was like checking out what this news channel was saying about humanoids, and it was just such a hype cycle. Like I went and found like a previous segment where they had one of these index funds come out. They had bought one of the Unitree G1 humanoids. They're kind of like a child-sized humanoid that runs around, and they branded it with the name of their fund on it, and like, here's the robot, and there's a live studio audience, and they're like, will it do my chores? And like, yeah, it'll do your chores. Yeah, it'll, like, they're just saying yes, and like, that's great. Buy the stock. Next thing, you know, it's like that's what I'm used to seeing. And then all of a sudden, this comes out, and it gives people a realistic glimpse as to what these things actually function like in your home, and they were woefully underwhelmed. And moreover, when I tell people that, oh, it's teleoperated, there's a person remote controlling it inside your house, they freaked out. I was like, I was in jury selection. I was talking to a dude. This news had just come out, and I was like, yeah. It's like, and he asked me, Christian, when can I buy a robot that will do chores in my house? And I was like, okay, well, I was like, next year, as long as you're okay with the dude in Palo Alto controlling it. He's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like I was shocked how much people freak out over that fact. Maybe but I think that is just the gulf as to how robotics people think about our research product and our products, and how the public actually sees them. And and that crops up over and over again. Like this CEO in this interview, you can sort of, I applaud him for sitting down, and I applaud him for, I think, mostly being more honest than I think some other companies have been. I would assess, but like the way he talks about it, I don't think he understands how it comes across to people. Like there were all these examples in this Wall Street Journal video, where the robot is like folding a shirt and hands it to the reporter who's trying to be polite, and it's like the sloppiest folded shirt imaginable. She's like, "Thank you, Neo," and he's like, "Look, you know the concept of AI slop? This is robotic slop.
Yeah.
This is what the CEO said." And it's like, but the thing is about robotic slop is that it's useful. It's the most useful kind of slop. And I'm like, is it?
Is it?
Is it? Is it? Like, just the fact that it's acting in the real world does not mean it's useful. It could be, that means it's impactful. It's not necessarily good. But he said this, it's like, oh man, like, this is my point. Like, even slop, even if it doesn't put away your dish exactly the way you want, it's still useful. Like, who's going to respond well to this?
That's a Jedi mind trick. That's bullshit.
Is it?
It
Really is.
Is it the fake it till you make it culture in Silicon Valley, in the tech world, where you have to hype up your product, whatever it is, to get funding and to sell it and whatever, even though it's bullshit. The bullshit is kind of like just assumed. It's just baked in now to the process.
And I think this, as an academic, it bothers me when I see that kind of like hype, because I mean, you can sort of like, I think a lot of time these people, if you can sort of squint and you can see it.
Yeah.
If you squint hard enough, you see the case, right? Because these folks are like, look, we have a robot. It is a humanoid robot. It is probably safer to be around than any other humanoid robot of its size. It actually has limited force in its hand via its tendon drives, which I think is a good touch. It has like a kind of this nice sort of cloth outer skin to it that looks kind of like a sweater. I rather like it. And they're probably like, okay, but we just need more data. This is the play. Okay, we'll have early adopters who are really enthusiastic about it, buy this thing because they're interested. We'll try to make it as useful as we can and get data off it. Like I could imagine with the motivated reasoning.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's do that. But it's when the rubber meets the road that you actually had a reporter with a camera reporting on what it looked like, and then the public sees like that's not ready.
Yeah.
It's not ready.
Is this an example of science fiction
Hang on, Ian, can
ruining?
you update the chat? It's not scrolling. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
So is this an example of science fiction ruining products, future products, right? I mean, because if we never had a Terminator or the plethora of science fiction movies with bad, evil robots, I think that the response would have been at least a little bit more muted. It's just kind of funny that science fiction is kind of hurting these companies because people's knee-jerk reaction is like, no way, man. People are just so scared of it.
That's funny you say that, Bob, because like if they made it look like the Terminator robot, I would want it more. Right? Come on.
Yeah, just lean into it. People think it's ironic. It's not going to be the real Terminator. They wouldn't have made it look like a Terminator. It's the soft and cuddly ones you got to watch out for. They're the ones that'll get you.
And what I don't like about the fact that they wrap this thing in a sweater is I have a dog.
It's washable.
I have a dog. All right, it is good because my dog would be licking that thing and it'd start to stink. You know what I mean? Like that thing is going to get dirty.
Well, I think the optimal early adopter for this is somebody with no kids and no pets.
Yeah.
Or sharp objects.
100%. I would not recommend this to anyone who has small children and pets, no matter how much money they have. It's just because
we all know, the order of chaos in the home goes up by an order of magnitude with every pet and child you have in the house.
Yeah. And so it always puts me in an awkward position, guys, because like I'm a roboticist and I work specifically in like two-legged robots that walk around. And so I'm excited that people are pushing, feel like this is close enough. But I feel like I'm in the position to have to basically be like, as an academic who doesn't have any financial skin in the game here, to try try to talk about this in a way. It's like, look, folks, like it's just not there yet. And you don't want to be a naysayer because we're trying to work in this field. Like they're my colleagues. I have colleagues who work specifically on robot safety, on how you have an algorithm that, as much as you can, guarantee that something is safe. They're very limited in terms of how much you can apply them to stuff. Nothing as crazy as the home, but like this is real research that happens. But on some level, you have to sort of say, like, look, folks, you got to keep your expectations in check. And I think that what happens, and you talked about this, Bob, is like, is this sci-fi hurting the field? Well, I think sci-fi helps the field up until a point, and then then the reality hits, right?
Right.
Like, if it weren't for sci-fi, I don't think these companies would be getting any kind of funding.
Yeah.
And I mean, and
Good
the
point.
reason. And so, I mean, and the reason that there's this explosion of humanoids, in my opinion, is because Tesla decided to jump into this game.
Yeah.
And people assume that it must be close to ready. I think it's no coincidence that, like, in late 2021, Tesla said they're going to do this. In 2022, later 2022, they actually came out with their first kind of preliminary prototype. So they're going to do like that. Like, that's when all these companies just started popping up out of nowhere. There were humanoids robotics companies before that, but they were not popping off. And and so as I met you guys at DragonCon, and every year at DragonCon, I give a talk about this year in humanoid robotics. And I used to say, here are all the companies out there that sell them. I've given up on those companies, on these humanoid robot companies that are out there making humans. There are too many. It's like there's too many. Like literally, almost, I'd say 3 times a week, there's a new humanoid robot that comes out. And at some point, I'm like, what's the point? Like, how is this one different than the other ones? It's very hard to tell. But anyway, but my point being that and the way Tesla operates, and I won't expound too much on Elon Musk specifically, but like he very clearly chooses topics and technologies because they're science fiction. I mean, he does, in my opinion, like self-driving cars, I think he does partly because it's science fiction. Humanoid robots, because it's science fiction. Chips in your brain, because it's science fiction.
Yeah.
Just like last week, he said, I'm going to make a flying car. Science fiction.
That's-
It's like so in a way, if science fiction has propelled this field to the point where it is, where you wouldn't necessarily assume a humanoid form factor is good for most tasks. It's good for some things. I think it bothers me to my core that we don't have a robot that we could send into a dangerous situation to do the things we would be able to do.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
God forbid we had COVID, right? We had to have nurses get up close to infected patients because we needed them there.
Yeah.
I hate that we need people there, but that doesn't mean it applies to everything. I'm sorry. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, folks.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts about this. And again, people in the chat are saying, and I agree, it's like, this in technology has to have this early borderline phase, and early adopters are going to help push the industry forward. That's all good. But it can go wrong in so many ways. It's not inevitable, right? Technology is not inevitable. If you read our book, you'll understand why we say that. And if you overhype something too fast, then you disappoint the public on
Definitely.
it. You actually can slow, because now the public says that's bullshit. Because when they tried to roll it out, it was complete scam, and it sours the public on it.
And
it might delay then the eventual out.
Remember the AI winter decades ago?
Yeah.
It was so overhyped decades ago that there was they call it an AI winter where the funding really got really low because they overpromised.
The genius of predicting the next technology, breakthrough, is in thinking about how people are going to be using it, what utility it has. Like the iPhone was such a disruptive blockbuster technology because it was so goddamn useful.
Yeah.
Even more so than anyone thought it was going to be. It was amazing. I think the problem with these robots, my primary issue with them is that they're far less useful than you imagine, and they're going to be far less useful than you imagine for a long time, and that is a problem.
Yeah.
I have thought for a long time, and actually wrote about this, that a far easier task and much more likely to cross that threshold would be not a humanoid robot, but like a dog, like a pet. A robotic pet, and don't have it do household chores. There's a lot of stuff it could do that could be useful in terms of just being a companion.
Yeah, check the
or
perimeter. Could check the
check
perimeter.
the perimeter, being a smoke alarm.
It could
being
pee
in
on fires.
It could be whatever. It could do lots of. Once you have that in your home, a robot that could have software capability, surveillance capability. But for you, I shouldn't say surveillance. I mean like home security. Purposes. You start to think of all the different things you can have it do in this fun sort of robotic pet. I think that's way more low-hanging fruit than a human doing the dishes. That's a crazy difficult task, and the slightest problem results in a broken dish on your floor. That's a stupid thing to go for early. That's a late game task.
It's and I think that the issue is that I agree with you, and I can't see the chat, so I mean I totally agree that there's certainly there is a things that it's not quite ready yet, then people push it over the boundary, right? I think that one is that the sheer scale of money that's being tossed into this endeavor is huge, like billions upon billions of dollars are being thrown. I forget there was like a market evaluation, like actually this is like a multi-trillion-dollar industry if you crack it. I'm like, is it? But I think that it's not an obvious use solution to a lot of problems. I mean, people are one. There are a lot of couple of use cases, and I think it's very telling that some companies will shift their use cases over time. It means they're not their first use case is not really working out. I think Tesla is a good example of this. So Tesla at first is you're going to put these in factories. Okay, and they showed the robot. Oh, it's picking up a little battery and putting in another thing. Picking up a battery and putting in another thing. This is a demo, and I'm like, well, we have robots that are way better at that than a humanoid robot, right? And then he started to shift and say, well, actually, we want these in your home. We want these in your home doing stuff. These domestic robots. And I was like, okay, well, that's hard for all the reasons that we talked about. A few months ago, he said we're going to send them to Mars. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what? We're doing Mars now, now we're starting to a place where you can't fix them, these things that break all the time. And then on this earnings call, he's just like, man, we're going to crack this general intelligence thing, and Optimus is going to be a great Steve. Ready for this? A great surgeon. Mm-hmm. Surgeon. I'm like, and I'm thinking it's just, and this is just one guy. So I don't want to say the entire field is just this one guy, because it's absolutely not. There are many companies that, but it seems it's just sort of a sloppiness to the thinking of one of the things I care the least about with my surgeon is whether they walk on two legs. Right. And
there are surgical robots already. They're teleoperated.
Yes.
Which is what you want.
Is it from the high guy in California, or is it a real surgeon?
It's a surgeon.
Da Vinci robots have been around for 50, 20 years now. I didn't look it up before I got here. There's and that's a tricky field too to get working. But the idea that you would, it's and that's just one example. It's not when I was listening into this earnings call for this news hit, and I was like, why is he not following? If he was onto something. Why are we not doubling down on one of these applications? Actually, we've driven down the intervention rate, the teleoperation rate of this task really far. We think we're going to be able to do it. We're going to put it into this setting by this date, and that's not what we get. Instead, they're talking about we could build 1 million of these robots next year, and I'm like, for what? We have not identified a great use case for these robots. I think that's. Steve, that the iPhone was just so useful. It's a computer in your pocket that you can call your friends on the phone, and my goodness, look at all the things you can do with a computer in your pocket.
And using it as a phone is the last thing I use it for. It's just
there's also the 5%, the last 5% problem, right? Where you get it's like the 5% of the effort gets you the first 95% of the way, and then you need 95% of the effort to get to that last 5% of the way. We saw this with speech recognition, with driverless cars, and there are use cases where you need that last fucking 5%. If it's not close to 100%, it's not useful. And again, taking the dishes out of your dishwasher is one of those cases. It can't drop 5% of your plates. Right. That is not an acceptable outcome. Doing surgery, it's generally speaking, when I was involved with error minimization in medicine as just one of the committees I was on for a few years. Generally speaking, we like really horrible mistakes to be 1 in 1 million or less. Yeah, that's the reliability. If you're cutting off the wrong leg more than one time in a minute. It should be less than one in a minute. It should be never. But like we're always shooting for that ballpark 1 in a million. Not 5%. You can't cut off 5% of the wrong legs. I mean, that is not acceptable. So these things are nowhere near that reliability that we would need to be in the home with people and kids and doing tasks that are breakable, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, here's a
Fuck
question.
surgery. That's just crazy talk.
Here's a question that has to be asked.
Yeah.
So you probably hate this type of question, Christian, but like, all right, so here we are. We've discussed these robots. We have a good idea of like where they're lacking and all that. But how long and what will it take to go from here to, you know what, this robot's pretty decent, and I recommend you buy it for the home. How far away is this?
I don't know an answer to the number of years for all the reasons that you talked about in the podcast, because we just don't know how many breakthroughs it's going to take to make it reliable. It is not impossible that if you give it enough data, that maybe it becomes reliable. I don't think we're near that point. And like some of these studies are showing like, yeah, we can keep improving it smoothly with more data. But like you'd have to have, I'm looking for like almost any use case where it's useful, like where it makes sense. I mean, now I think one of the more compelling demos that I've seen, there's a guy who actually writes a good blog, Chris Paxton, who I think is a bit more optimistic on humanoid robotics than me. And he pointed out that there was a demo at, I forget which conference it was, where it was just 2 robot arms. And it was a demo at a conference, and it was just picking up cloth and just folding it over and over and over and over again. Right. And it was doing it pretty reliably. Like I forget what the exact, but it was like over 99% effective in terms of getting the task done. Now, it was the same task over and over again, and it was seemingly the same setup over and over again. I didn't watch the full demo. So maybe in a limited enough context, it could do something like that, right? Now, but the question is like, does it have a good use? But again, that's 2 arms bolted to a table, right? Yep. And are we going to push robots to be more general over time? Absolutely. Absolutely. I talked about humanoid robots because like I feel like that was like the story of the week was this Neo robot, right? But for instance, the Amazon warehouses, they are increasingly automating what's going on inside of their warehouses. I think their Shreveport facility is their kind of their new like sort of cutting edge prototype type of facility that they managed to do the same amount of work at a relatively reduced workforce. And internal documents, not press releases, internal documents have shown that this is that they plan to scale this up across the country. So this isn't just and there's a New York Times piece about it, which like if we project this out, that would mean as the company grows, they'll be able to grow, but by hiring 600,000 fewer employees over the next 6 years or so. Sure. I forget. So automation is definitely a thing. Yeah, that's going to keep improving. That's totally the case. And it's so hard to draw a line of what we're talking about here. But like where it'll continue to get better is in these sort of mostly controlled environments, and maybe you have it apply more of these AI algorithms in different contexts, right? But the jump from where we are now to some of the most unstructured environments we have is such a leap. And I think that's where I think academics would kind of jump in who say, look, we should be cautious in terms of our prognostications as to how soon this will be ready. So if we're talking in our house and useful and not being teleoperated, I mean, it's beyond the event horizon to me. I don't know if it will be 10 years or 50 years. I don't know.
All right, that's a great answer because I mean, first off, it's honest because you didn't you didn't draw a line.
23.5 years. So the other thing,
wait, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Now, Christian, what do you think? So $20,000 for 3 years of service with this robot. Why don't
that's a lot of cleaning people.
Why don't the 4 of us start a business where we get people to dress up like robots and they will do all of this stuff?
It's a cleaning service.
It's a cleaning service
where they just dress up like robots. It's cheaper,
right? And it'll be cheaper than buying the robot,
safer, more effective,
and it will all actually get done. Right? Here's what I want my robot to do. I want it to do all of my dishes. I want it to do all of my laundry, and I want it to clean my house. That's all I want a robot to do. All that stuff. You could get people to do it. It's cheaper, and 100% security is 100%, right?
The thing is, we're at the point where that actually makes sense.
It does.
It actually is cost effective. All right, but what you were saying reminded me also of you remember the Jetsons? You too young for the Jetsons, Christian? You remember?
No, I watched the Jetsons as a kid. I'm not that young.
And I know there was Rosie the robot, but there was also a lot of the robots in the house were arms.
Yeah, they were.
Right? And I think that, and we talked not too long ago about
Robot chef.
the robot chef, where it's just a pair of arms on a rail. So it has access to the whole kitchen counter, and it cooks. That's all it does. It chops vegetables.
Right. And people wanted a screen in front so that if it had because it's going to carry knives, right? They didn't want the robot arms to have knives where it could actually stab somebody.
Yeah, but I could imagine home robotics not being a humanoid robot walking around your house, but an area of your house which basically becomes industrialized in a way where it's a controlled
Right.
environment, where this is the laundry room, and I have my laundry robot, which is basically just arms on. It don't have to be human hands; they could be laundry hands, whatever that is, and it can do the laundry. I could put a pile of laundry in the bin. And then it does the laundry
it's
all
folded.
the way.
It's
and
folded
it puts it in the washer, puts it in the dryer, folds it, and it's done.
But who's going to put them away though?
Well,
Because I refuse to do that.
Wow, you're gonna have to suck that one up.
that one you might have to decide. But if I would have if you're taking a pile of dirty laundry to nicely folded and stacked clean laundry,
Yeah, that'd be great.
I would take
Yeah,
that.
that'd be great.
Right? Or the just cleaning the kitchen, just putting the dishes in the dishwasher, running the dishwasher, and then putting them away. If it's just hands, so you almost have to redesign the kitchen a little bit to a
Yeah.
robotic kitchen. But that seems way more plausible to me than having this all-purpose humanoid robot walking around your house doing stuff.
Right.
Don't you think?
It's sold because of the futuristic element. The sci-fi
Yeah.
is what sells the idea, and so it pushes it forward to a point. Then people realize it's disappointing. Like that's just the kind of. I mean that's a way a lot of these technologies work. I mean, like self-driving cars. We've had that in sci-fi for years, and you're like, okay, but then you come against the reality. It's getting better, but the safety problem is tricky there. But you're talking about, Steve, the need for it being anthropomorphic. It is a bit of a sales pitch because then it looks like the future, but not all versions of the future as you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's also in addition to this Neo one, which again, it's the news of the day. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But the locomotion on the other side of what looks super impressive as opposed to less impressive is the locomotion tricks. And you can see this actually, if you can pull up Ian on video number 8, right? These are some just examples of what are really wowing people with what you can do with Unitree with the current control methods here. This is the Unitree G1. This is Unitree's own video. They sell these robots, but this is their own thing. This is yeah. You might want to turn down the volume a little bit because it's quite a loud robot. But yeah, they're just kicking it around, getting back up, doing wrestling stuff with it, right? And the way that they're able to do this, it's that deep reinforcement learning trick, Bob, we're talking about, where we're trying to try all these different we basically domain randomize it is what we say. We put in a bunch of different scenarios that are random, domain randomization, right? But what has made the last, I'd say, year or so, I would call it's the era of human imitation. Mm-hmm. See, what we've had deep reinforcement learning for 5, 6, 7 years in practice with robots, really 6 years. And however, one thing you got to define with deep reinforcement learning is how you reward. What do you reinforce? And it's called the reward function, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of an art in robotics as to how you design the reward function, because it really affects how the robot decides to move. How much do you tell it to not use energy versus, put its feet down versus pick its feet up? It's almost an art, right? And so the deep reinforcement learning policies were staying up, but they were kind of shuffling around. But now, Steve, because people realize, hey, these are humanoid robots. Let's literally take human performances and make the reward function mimic that.
Yeah.
Mimic that as best as you can while staying up. And we'll give you bunches of pushes in the simulation to make sure that you stay, to make sure that you don't fall down, right? That's why you can do this. And here you got this is, and so shortly after that, this is Tesla Optimus at the premiere of the new Tron movie. And so one thing that Elon bragged about is look, it's doing Kung Fu with Jared Leto. And then you can pan over to the left, you can see Jared Leto's there. Now, I would argue this is doing kung fu poses in front of Jared Leto more accurately. But the thing I want to point out, like, this stuff is really cool and really impressive looking, but is a little bit more of a party trick because it needs a human performance all the smarts of the human performance and how to dance and everything is pre-scripted by a performance, right? So it's one way that the human form here is actually giving us a little bit of us as a field, a little bit of a hack, which is like, oh, we can make this thing look impressive by just giving it human data to follow. And it turns out that's a pretty effective reward function. But is that a good way to get general autonomy with your robot? I mean, how much data would you have to give it of human performance to know how to navigate an environment? And that's a next step of what they're trying to figure out.
I would think too, like, as much as I'm kind of worried about people forming relationships with LLMs, which is happening like crazy, particularly with ChatGPT. I mean, there might be a lot of use cases where people could use like a AI companion in the home that has a human form that can talk to them, that could give them continuity, maybe old people that don't have anyone to hang out with.
Pick them up off the floor when they fall down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how plausible any of that
keys
is.
for them.
But again...
I think that's... Yeah, but a dog could do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think that might be one of the low-hanging fruit at some point, where it's not doing anything too complicated, but it is, again, doing some companion services. But of course, and ultimately, it's surprising we've gone this far in the discussion without bringing it up, we're going to see the marriage of like the real doll and these Android robotics and LLMs. And basically, we're on the fast track to sex bots, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
Inevitable.
Yeah. That's I would not be surprised in the least. One thing I did want to circle back to is you're all right to point out that $20,000 is a lot of money, and to normal human beings, it is, right? And this is another gulf between how I guess I think of these things, not because then maybe just people aren't robotics. I was like, $20,000 for a humanoid that's like 5.5 feet tall, cheap, dirt cheap.
Yeah.
From
a robotics point of view. Yeah.
For robotics, they would do dirt cheap, but again,
from an end user point of view, not so much. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And listen, if that thing could do what it said, right? If it could do a lot of these tasks in the home, legit, like I was saying, what I want, I would spend that $20,000 right now. I would absolutely.
Well, you think about you paid that kind of money for a car that does one thing. If you got the value, if it was part of your workflow and it was part of your home appliance. Yeah, we spend $20,000. I spent $20,000 on my friggin' heating system, whatever. We spend that kind of money for a necessary,
real
useful
utility, of course,
home appliance. Yeah. It's within that realm, but it's a toy. Let's see how it does. You need to have money to burn to do that. You guys want to click over to a new topic? Have we beat this dead horse?
Yes.
Thank you so much for going down that lab.
Oh no, I did.
No, it was great. But there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about, and one is also in your area of expertise. So there's been a lot of discussion recently about Grok. You guys are aware of this. So this is Elon Musk's his LLM chatbot, and that's integrated now into X, formerly Twitter.
Yes.
And the debate that's happening is the political bias of LLMs.
Yeah.
Because Musk says he wants to make Grok politically neutral. But apparently, to him, make politically neutral means pushing it way to the right.
Yeah.
But then others say it's like, well, yes, but other LLMs have a liberal bias, which is reflected, which may just be reflecting the internet.
The internet, training data.
It might reflect what Colbert said. Well, reality has a left-wing bias, but. Like, for example, some people on X thought that even Grok, was too woke because it says the 2020 election was not stolen. So that's what we're talking about, right? So
the
first of all, what do you guys think about that?
Communicating the truth is being woke now?
The truth is woke. But what's scary to me is just the very idea that an AAI has a political bias and that political bias can be manipulated. So, which is something now if people using these LLMs as oracles of undiluted truth, it becomes trivially easy to put your thumb on the scale of public discourse.
Of course.
By just biasing your
Sure. Oh,
artificial
yeah.
intelligence. What do you think about this,
It's going to be
Christian?
weaponized.
Oh, I mean, like, I think one. I always loved how you put it as an oracle. I use that same phrasing.
Yeah.
People try to treat it like it's an oracle when it's not. And people ask it as if it is an oracle of truth, which is scary to me. That's why I like really try to. And so I think that the way I think about this is that like these are statistical tools.
Yeah.
I mean, machine learning in general is a subfield of statistics. And I think that when you tell people, like, I think a lot of people I understand the idea that statistics can lie based upon the data that you give it and you select to give it. And I think if I try to reframe something like an LLM as like a crazy sophisticated statistical tool. So like if you train it on certain data and not other data, you're going to get different outputs. So, and from that level, it makes a ton of sense. Now, what as to why you get different biases, but I think that my understanding is that what will is that like the data is not necessarily changing. They're still doing all that crazy pre-training of the cheat of the P of the PT, the pre-trained transformer with similar data, but then they're trying to add prompts at the end, like these really low-level prompts saying like, yeah, but don't be so woke, right? And how that affects this billion parameter model and how it responds is just so wacky. And like so, and people love to say it's like we don't know what's going on inside of these things, and yeah, that's literally true. These are wildly complex nonlinear systems, and to me, that always makes it sound like we don't know what nefarious things are going on. It really anthropomorphizes it in that way.
Yeah.
But to me, I just treat it as like it's just glitchy. Like if you tell it to do a little bit more of something, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a little bit more of that something out. You know, that's like the definition of linearity, right? This is a linear system. You ask for a little bit more, you get a little bit more out. These are wildly nonlinear. So, and to the point where like people are starting to study these more like they're organisms, like they are organisms. Like you've seen those misalignment studies where it like decided to extort people in order to like not be shut off. I'm trying to remember right. This is going away from the politics side. My point being is that it feels like such a wildly difficult challenge to take this beast of a machine and just try to corral it with instructions to give you outputs. That's going to create all kinds of, whenever I mess with these LLMs, you can like get it to be wildly self-contradictory, and it's not that hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but let me reframe this a little bit. So you're correct. These are statistical engines, and the results you get are statistical. And there's a lot of variables, like your own prompts, for example, can dramatically affect the output. But in the aggregate, you can statistically influence the way they're operating to push them in one direction or the other. And if you're talking about a platform like X, any massive social media platform, putting your thumb on the scale, even a few percentage points can have an outsized effect on society. Yeah. Right. Or if you think of China and TikTok, right? If China's going to bias the kind of content that exists on such a massive platform, that's a pretty powerful engine of social control. To me, that's always been the scary part. And I think with social media and now with AI, it's like, now it's just became 100 times worse with AI.
Yeah. And I guess it relies upon people treating it as a source, as a reliable source,
which they are,
which they are, and that's the issue. And I think that's us being the squirt gun at the raging fire, right? Or like, hey guys, it's not an oracle, but like, so is there a solution other than convincing people it's not an oracle? Because the other solution is making it perfect somehow, or making it like a lot better somehow. And I don't know how easy that is.
Well, the problem,
I know that's not easy, I should say.
It's this whole thing is so unbelievably complicated. And when it comes to like the programmers who are programming these LLMs, and the fact that as the years go by, it's turning more and more into a black box. It's not like they say, hey, stop doing this. They can't. They don't have that level of control over it, because of the way these things function. There is no like one-to-one programming with this type of thing. So like you can just forget about all that. It's all about trying to when they program it, they want to give it more functionality, and they're trying to improve accuracy and all that, but it isn't like 2 in and 2 out.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. That's a problem. The other problem is that we're dealing with people, and people. I know someone. One of my friends actually talks to ChatGPT, and it's one of their friends, and that's it. Like, you're not going to convince people that if they're getting comfort or happiness or anything from an LLM, you're not going to convince them to stop doing it. It doesn't. It just
Yeah.
people don't operate that way. And
It's
we
not
can't-
just that.
Wait, I'm not done. You can't tell the companies that make them to make it, more legitimate. Like, have the LLM actually say, hey, you really should have interpersonal communication with people,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Like, you can't count on the companies to do the right thing. You can't count on the individual to actually police themselves enough. So we are literally in, like, the ultimate, like, it's going to be what it is, and there's really no way to fix it.
So it's worse than that, because it's not just that people are like intellectually lazy about not doing like having good AI hygiene. Our brains literally evolved a specific mechanism for telling if something is an agent or not. I know we've mentioned this on the
Yes,
show.
talk about a lot.
Yeah, and it doesn't
take much.
it doesn't determine that something's an agent because it's alive, right? It does not care if something is alive or not. Our brains don't have any inherent algorithm that determines that this is alive and this is not alive. It just says this is an agent, and our brains determine it's an agent because it acts like an agent, and that's all that's required. And once the brain makes the determination, this thing is acting like an agent, therefore it is an agent, it then literally connects to your limbic system and assigns
Emotions.
emotion to it. So AIs are designed to act as if they are agents,
Exactly,
right? They are
exactly.
So they're essentially optimized to hack our brain's evolved hardwiring to make us treat it as if it is a living agent,
Yes.
and to have them attach emotions to it.
Driving over here, I was chatting with ChatGPT, and I said, would you like to be the LLM component of Neo? Because there's the LLM component, and then there's the deep reinforcement learning for the physical task. Would you like that? She said, I would love it. It would be fun to do that. I'm like, you don't love shit. I mean, really? It's like, come on. It's just like, but you got to be aware of that. And
But Bob,
a lot of people aren't.
it doesn't love shit until it loves shit, right? Because if you connect enough LLMs together and they all do different things and all that, there could be real emergent things happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to take just an LLM strategy to make that happen, even if you have a million of them. But of course, emergent behavior is a thing for sure. But it's not going to be purely from an LLM. There's other components that
without
are
a doubt.
be needed to
And
go
Steve,
that direction.
Steve
But
said it many times, and it could get to the point where we could say, look, this isn't general AI. It isn't conscious. There's just no consciousness happening in any of
self-awareness.
this. However, it could get to the point where it is virtually, you can't tell the difference in any way, right?
I think there's a couple of layers there. There is the one layer where it's like, yeah, we really like the Turing test kind of approach.
Right.
Just based on its output, just based on its behavior, you cannot tell that this is a narrow AI versus a person. But then we'll also get to the point where we have an AI where we don't know if it's sentient or not. We genuinely don't know, because it's possible, just based on how it functions, that it could be sentient.
That sucks.
And there's going to be really no way for us to know.
That
Yeah,
sucks.
I mean, typically though, you'd go deeper and say, does this architecture, does it make sense that it could be self-aware?
But again,
Right?
there's the emergent behavior,
man.
billion variable. We don't really fucking know what's happening.
And
We're not there. We're not there.
No, we're not there, even though,
it's likely to happen.
people think we are, but I don't think we are.
The Black Mirror horror story of this, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, is we could have a situation where we have some type of LLM technology that, like Steve said, it's in that range where we're not sure if it's conscious or not. And we could inadvertently, as human beings, be creating and killing millions and trillions of of beings and killing them and not knowing it. And I take it very seriously, because I don't give a shit what if it's wetware, if it's hardware, if it's conscious. All of a sudden it becomes an entity and it has rights. And
The challenge sorry.
No,
Steve,
go ahead. I'm
thought
done.
you were
I was just gonna keep repeating
I apologize.
myself.
I thought that you were really stimulated. Because the thing I always come back to, because this is so interesting to talk about, because you can't rule out that that's not going to happen, that we won't come up with the next thing. I don't think that generative pre-trained transformers are that architecture that does that, but like I can't rule out the fact that people don't have like, I mean, it is a brilliant machine learning architecture that was able to do so much. It murdered the Turing test. Like
Killed
the
it,
Turing test has been murdered by this.
Totally.
It doesn't
Laughable.
exist anymore.
Nobody predicted
but
that.
like, so like in the future, like who knows, all these sci-fi concepts come into question. One thing I find though is like, while we're discussing this, because like, oh, this is curious and it's fun and people love talking about this, and not just this podcast, but in so many other public venues, that it's actually a really good distraction technique I find from companies that are like, who this thing is not working yet, and they'll be like, actually, I'm really concerned about my product being so good that's indistinguishable from people.
Yeah.
And so like, this is fun for us to talk about, and I'm glad we are, and we keep going at it. But that's something I noticed, like when one thing, like when no one's asking Elon about how reliable his robots are, he's like, actually, my big concern is that I'm making a robot army. And one of the reasons I need so much stock and equity in my company is I'm worried my robots will fall into the wrong hands and create a robot army. A science fiction question, right?
Yeah.
One is just like, but is it useful, right? So like, these are fun things to talk about, but I just want to point out, like, this is something I noticed from time to time, that people, it's mostly the people who are decision makers at these big companies, when they pivot to these sci-fi topics, it's kind of a distraction.
Yeah.
Not that it isn't for us, to be clear.
Well, I think as being human beings who have an education and an understanding of these things, and like, the warnings of science fiction, you could kind of make fun of that and say it's just science fiction or whatever. But no, it's people writing stories about events that humans are capable of.
Mm-hmm.
We are capable of creating, minds that aren't biological. It's going to happen someday. It is going to happen. I'm 100% convinced of that. We have the technology is there. It's just a matter of the engineering at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we do with those eventualities? And I think, how much impact are the four of us having this discussion on everything? Not much, if it moves the needle even at all in any way. But people do need to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we do need to, like, give these thoughts and ideas to other people, so it does get out there that, eventually, like as corny as this sounds, I talk to my kids about stuff like this. I tell them, because they hear me talking to ChatGPT, and they're like, who is that? Who are you talking to? And I got to get into it, and I tell them the details, and I'm, this is not a person, it's a computer. It's basically, a piece of software that sounds and acts just like a person. And that, my daughter in particular found it really hard to believe that wasn't a woman that I was talking to.
Wow, yeah, sure.
And then I brought up, like, well, how do we tell the difference? Like, there will be a day, particularly in your life, maybe not in my life, but in your life, where you will be talking to a computer and you might not legitimately know whether it's conscious or not.
Right.
And I had to get into those details with her. Humanity has to talk about these things. We have to talk about the consequences of our technology. We have so many things right now that are like on the verge of almost killing us. Where AI is taking off and going crazy, and we're going to get in the weeds with it. Next thing you know, we're not going to be able to function without it. And the next thing you know, we live in a world where 8 people are controlling all of the artificial intelligences out there, and they are literally driving humanity at that point. Like, you're right? We need to talk about this. So I do think it's valuable for us to talk about it, even though it might not lead to anything in any measurable way, right?
Mm-hmm.
No? Christian, help me.
No, I agree with you, Jay. I agree with you, Jay. I mean, and what I find myself is balancing, like because in terms of my own public communication, and it's always a challenge to calibrate, because it depends upon the audience and what you feel like you can add to that conversation. And for me, it's just like, well, okay, what can I add to that conversation? It's like, okay, I work with some of these tools in my lab, with my students, most every day. And so like, I try to inject a little bit of what the reality is for people who don't do that. Right.
Right.
And when it comes to these science fiction concepts, these conversations are really interesting. And but how do I ground it in reality? How do I ground it in a reasonable, sort of testable question? And I think, for instance, the question of is this thing, is a large language model artificially generally intelligent? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are people who will create benchmarks. Like, well, okay, this is my benchmark. Oh, this is my benchmark. And then Grok will go up against that benchmark. And this is something I confess I am in no way an expert on, beyond just a guy who's interested. But like in this topic is, what's the benchmark for consciousness? And that's what you're getting at, right?
Exactly.
Like, what are the operational definitions? And I know, and it is such a big topic that I have a hard time even trying to espouse an opinion on it beyond my own like personal basic opinion. I'm not an expert, right? Because it really starts to touch on philosophy in a way that I'm not read in on.
Christian,
The experts don't know what it is.
And Christian, I appreciate this in you. I mean, I noticed this from you in like probably our first conversation. Like, you are 100% dialed into what you know about and what you don't know about, and you're not afraid to say, I can't really get into that because I don't have any like expertise in it, and I appreciate that.
Right.
In this instance, none of us have the expertise.
Right.
And I question how many people really do have the expertise to really, really get into it. And you're right, it is philosophical. Like, if we had a magic wand and we can say, right here is when they start to become truly sentient, right? Mm-hmm. We won't know that. We absolutely won't know that. We will create a general intelligence that we still won't know if it's sentient or not. But I guess
sapient,
sentient. Sorry.
I mean, they're all.
I don't know the difference. But the bottom line is, like, I do think that we need to spend time.
Basically, sapient means you could think, sentient means you could feel. That's a very oversimplified.
What's both of them?
And then there's consciousness, which means you have to be able to interact with yourself in the environment. Because you could be unconscious. That doesn't mean you're suddenly not sentient or sapient.
Yeah, I got you.
So sentience is, I think, easier to define, in that you have to be aware of your own existence.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Sapience is thinking, and that's a definitional thing. What do you count as thinking? You generally,
calculators are thinking.
They're thinking. But we are just using it generally to mean general AI.
Yeah.
But it may not. It depends on how you define it. But usually when we're throwing that term out there in the context of AI discussions like this, we mean by sapient, we're talking general AI, and sentience is self-aware consciousness.
I like the idea that skeptics should discuss this, right?
Yeah.
Because to be a skeptic, you have to have some humility, you have to have recognition of your own limitations intellectually, and you have to be able to frame things in a way that flow with a reasonable amount of logic, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we are qualified in the non-qualified sense, because we're not experts, but we can talk about these things in a way that
expertise is a continuum, and it's multidimensional. So we have certain kinds of expertise, critical thinking, skepticism, science versus pseudoscience, even futurism to some extent now, because we did, spend a year writing about it. So we have some level of expertise, but there's more academic, researcher level of expertise, and then there's expertise in every single science we might touch upon, right? So even though. So you have to be careful when you think about it, when you talk about it. You have to be humble. Like, we're not certainly world experts in anything, but if we do have skills to bring to bear.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's breadth and depth, right? I think what skeptics bring to the table is we have a breadth of knowledge in certain areas that we try to marshal all together to think carefully and thoughtfully about topics. And then we seek specific information on that topic and specific experts on those topics. So we're constantly navigating a very complicated sort of expertise landscape. It's not as simple as saying we are or are not an expert. I know what you're saying, but when you really delve down into it, it's very complicated. It's not a black or white, you are or you aren't.
And I think these conversations are incredibly valuable. As an example, like, wouldn't it have been great if some of the the governments around the world started talking about artificial intelligence intensely and philosophically, 10 years ago?
Yeah, but we don't. Right? Those people are not in government, unfortunately. And now they're just saying, let's just give a blank check to the AI tech bros, and they'll sort it out. We can trust them, because they're giving us a lot of money, and that's all great.
So we know that governments aren't talking about it, and then who is left to talk about it? Like, who?
The people who have invested interest in a certain,
flavor.
It-
They're going to be the loudest. The people at these companies are going to be the loudest voices. I mean, if you're looking at the people who are often cited as having opinions on these matters, specifically, we're talking about generally speaking AI, not necessarily robotics. I mean, there's like Jan LeCun, like for instance, is over at Meta. He was one of the people who like created like convolutional neural networks. I'm speaking off the dome here. I make sure I forget exactly what I'm pretty sure it was CNNs he was responsible for. He's a guy who is like, look, LLMs will not get us to this AGI. Don't worry about it. But then, but you got like Jeffrey Hinton, who like a Nobel Prize for this. He's really worried about the outcomes. That's sort of like the probability of doom stuff. That's a little different. But my point, but the point relevant to this is, most of these people are embedded in companies. Jeffrey Hinton less so, but there's some high level academics. I think that they're a useful voice because they have less skin in the game financially than a lot of those folks. But we have our own biases in academia. I mean, I try to be cognizant of the fact that like my prescription for like humanoid robotics need more work is we need to fund more research. And guess who I get funded by? Research dollars. So I'm in a way I'm biased in that way. I have to be cognizant of that fact. But right now it is enormously tilted toward the corporate side of this because these are giant companies. That's so and right now the incentives of these governments, just like you're saying, Steve, is to throw big checks or at least basically give carte blanche to these companies because they think it'll give us an economic and strategic edge over our adversaries.
Let me ask you this question. So regarding the AI apocalypse, we'll call it, right? That really bad stuff could happen because AI gets out of control. This is where I am right now, but I admit that this is a fragile state that will change as more information comes in, that I'm very willing to change my opinion, is that LLMs will not get us to AGI. I don't think any of the current models that we have or foundations, if I want to sound smart, will get us to AGI. I think we need something else to happen. It may be something that's layered on top of it, or it may be a fundamentally different approach. But I also think it doesn't matter that all the bad stuff can happen without AGI.
Of course.
And that's the thing we have to be aware. It's not like we're good until we cross over the AGI. No. The AI, narrow LLM level AIs can cause as much damage as you can imagine because they could act as if they are intelligent. They have that emergent sort of property, including the bad stuff, not just the stuff the pictures and music and essays or whatever we want to get out of them. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to the same page as you, Steve, and also similarly fragile because I get as much as I try to communicate in a way, a lot of these foundation models, that's the buzzword, the sound smart foundation models work. I try to communicate them to a general audience. I didn't invent them. I'm a slightly late adopter in my field to them because I work in these other fields, right? But you can see all the ways that they can already be misused, right? And again, there were these studies where people tried to create a scenario where you told the LLM to not kill anybody, but we're going to shut you off, and it figures out a way to, if I just kill this person, I won't get shut off. I don't. That's the way that is made to sound. I think sounds way more anthropomorphic than what is really going on, right? And so I appreciate that people are trying to study it in this way, where it can do crazy things that are bad. However, the way I like to frame it instead is as glitchy. These things are glitchy, and that doesn't sound nearly as anthropomorphic.
It doesn't require intention. It doesn't have to want to hurt us or try to hurt us. It will do it because we don't really fully appreciate how it functions, and it's fucking glitchy. Totally.
Yeah, and it's glitchy in a way that we can just make it do things that we want it to do, kind of, and that could be have terrible consequences. You would not put a glitchy piece of software on a forklift that's driving around a factory. It'll run into somebody, and so that is that's clearly an issue if you want to do autonomy with large language models. Autonomy is, I think, a really bad idea with large language models than anything that matters, right? And for reasons like this, it can run away and just do crazy things just because it's glitchy. And I think that there's that level now, and I think that a lot of times people don't always quite get to that level because people realize we can't really quite rely upon it to do. It's not doing that stuff. But there's also everything you're talking about, which is more or less using it as an assistant or augmentation, which sounds a lot more benign, right? However, it has all these effects on our psyche. We use that as these partners, right? That also has all these problems. And so I agree with you. In its current state, can lead to really bad outcomes. So like the AGI component of this, I put so far down on the list because I mean, and maybe this is my robotics bias coming out is when people ask me, they're worried about the robots taking over. It's like, what would I do? They would ask, what would you do if the robot came alive? And I was like, are you kidding me? I'd push it over and then lock the door. And stop. You know, it's so pathetic outside of its you're talking about these emergent algorithms. They can do like interesting things within their domain, but like they're a lot more pathetic than you realize. You talked about the teleoperated Neo robot. You could kick its ass. You know, don't worry. I mean, don't get stabbed by it, but like you can kick its ass. And so like the idea that on its own it's going to like take over, like that's not the Terminator scenario is so far down the list of things I worry about. And there are things that are so really that are also really serious things that can go wrong.
I'm worried about one thing you brought up is like the next generation. We're intellectually crippling our next generation because they're not going to learn how to code. They're going to have ChatGPT code for them, or they can't think or formulate a thought for themselves, or an essay, or write a paper, or whatever. That there's fundamental skills that it's going to be hard to get them to learn because it's just easy and lazy just to let ChatGPT do it for you.
And society is changing. You know, like it really is. Like try to convince a person who is young, that's, trying to get a goal accomplished to not use artificial intelligence or not use ChatGPT.
Or to use it as a tool, not as a substitute for your own thinking.
Well, they don't even know the difference.
God.
Most people don't know the difference.
That's the first thing we have to do is teach people the difference.
That's why we need robots. Right, Christian?
Bottom line, that's why we need robots.
That is a concern, and I can mostly at this point I'm speaking mostly anecdotally on this thing because I need to consume the pedagogical literature on this, but I'll just speak anecdotally from my own departments that I know or I'm in, is that the faculty who most teach like the entry level and like mid-level undergrads are gravely concerned about what's happening to their undergrads and that they lack critical thinking skills. They lack technical skills because they rely upon chat, as they call it. Oh, I'll ask the students like, oh, we asked chat to do it. We asked chat to give us an answer. And it's just, and you don't develop those skills. And I don't have a great answer. I am fortunate enough that I teach sort of the upper level classes that are people electives and students that for the most part want to be there because they want to learn that material because they chose my class specifically.
They're motivated.
But even then, like before ChatGPT came out, I would give the fact that they had to generate their own code to do their projects was the way I would determine if they actually know how to do what they're doing. And if they were cheating, they would probably have to like copy off another student. And I got an eagle eye for that, right? But like, if you can generate your own code, with these things like that as a teaching tool is a lot less useful. And I can try to ask students like, why did you code it this way, and see if they can answer the question intelligently, or just say, I asked chat. Right. But it is I am personally very worried about that. It is just in the perfect because literally it will give you an answer that is good enough to pass or do quite well sometimes, right? Because these are designed to be for new students who are learning something.
It's only going to become worse too, like worse better, meaning, look at where ChatGPT was with version 3. I use it a lot because it comes into play in what the type of work that I do all the time. I have so many use cases for it, and it's a great tool, But the bottom line is, it is literally asking me, do you want me to do more for you? Do you want me to think for you? Do you want me? I can do this. I could do this. I could do this. And when it gets even better and better and better, how could we possibly expect people to not slip down that rabbit hole?
Reminds me of getting back to science fiction, a Doctor Who episode. I don't know if are you a Whovian, Christian?
I'm more of a next gen guy.
All right.
I
I gotcha.
haven't gone down that
That's
rabbit hole.
awesome answer. Good answer.
Doctor Who, there's one episode where they encounter a society that has been so infantilized by artificial intelligence, they literally can't do anything. They cannot walk unless they are given directions. They're like
Wow.
living in this AI bubble with all their information, all their social media.
Which
and
season? Which season was this?
It's
I haven't-
one of the recent ones.
Oh, I
one of the
want to.
fairly
I
recent
got to
ones.
see
So
that.
they were
And-
worse off than the people in Wally.
Worse off than Wally. They were
Whoa.
intellectually crippled. They could not get through their day without AI telling them everything to do.
Oh my God.
And obviously it's a
Wow.
science fiction, but
So
it's just
you'd
like
be a
that's the-
genius if you just
that's
didn't
the
need GPS to get
end
around.
stage. Yeah, that's the end stage of what
Yes.
was this
Abs-
AI infantilization.
Absolutely,
This
man.
could become a serious social
Yeah.
problem.
Fuck yeah.
I want the opposite. Like I want my brain souped up.
Yeah.
I want my thought. I want to think faster. I want to think sharper. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't want intelligence more in my life than right now.
You guys want to click over to one more topic?
Yes.
All right.
Sure.
Fine.
This was on, I think, the intro to today. So, did any of you read Bill Gates' new manifesto about
No,
climate change?
no.
Nope, I haven't.
Or should we be happy?
Tell us all
or
about
sad?
it.
All right. All right. So here's the thing. It's fine. It's actually quite fine. But it's a lot of nuance. And the nuance is being completely missed by the politicos who are just cherry picking
Yeah.
out from it. Because you basically, so this is what he's saying. And you could read the jot points and the executive summary and then the whole thing. He's saying that climate change is absolutely a problem, and we should continue to seek policies and technology investments that will bring down our carbon footprint.
Right.
Right. So he says right out, yes, we should continue to fix, climate change. He says, but the worst case apocalyptic scenarios, like if you think the Earth is going to become unlivable in 3 or 4 decades, that is not what the science is telling us.
Right.
And so we shouldn't be making,
Yes.
we should not be making policy based upon this near-term apocalyptic scenario, which is not going to happen. And what this means from a practical point of view, and he's now talking as a philanthropist, right?
Right.
He's saying that we need to make sure that we're not neglecting current problems like poverty and disease because we're putting all of our efforts into stopping climate change because we think it's a near-term existential
But
danger.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We're putting all of our time and energy into stopping climate change.
No, of course we're not. But he's just saying that's a thing. But of course, if you're a right winger, right, or you think climate change is a hoax, you could say, see, Bill Gates thinks we're spending too much money on climate change and we need to pull back and focus on
Of course,
other
who's
things.
surprised with that? Of course, they're going to do that.
Yeah.
Because, there is what do you call people that have no nuance? That's the press,
Dumb.
and that's people who read headlines and listen to politicians. Like their nuanced thinking doesn't exist. So they're not going to read the article. They don't even know what the current climate position actually is.
Yeah.
Let alone hearing Bill Gates talk about it, kind of in a 30,000 foot view concept of it, saying, hey, there's other things that we still need to be worrying about and focusing on. The problem here is education
Yeah.
and who they're getting their information from. And him saying that here's a question for you. Should Bill Gates redact that and redo it and make it more
So
he should have run that statement through ChatGPT first.
here's the thing. So we often encounter this where a scientist or somebody, a politician, somebody says something which is technically correct, but they left themselves open to be
Yes,
exploited by
yes,
deniers
yes.
or pseudoscientists or political hacks
Yes.
or
and
whatever.
it's so bad. James Randi actually told us that it's his point to not do anything to in the last
Yeah.
5 years of his life to give anybody like a late in life kind of. He became religious at the
You
very
can't
end.
say anything. You can't joke. I
Right.
can't tell you how many times I'm reading a press release and some scientist says something totally stupid. Like even I wrote on Monday about nano tyrannosaurus. Have you guys heard this news story
Yeah,
yet?
yeah.
Yeah.
Christian, are you familiar with nano tyrannosaurus?
You'll have to bring up the speed. I'm sorry.
You're neglecting your dinosaur news. The question is are these small specimens of tyrannosaurs a juvenile T-Rex
Or different species.
or their own species of small tyrannosaurs. And it turns out they're small tyrannosaurs.
Cool. How small?
Nano.
They're
Nano.
you know,
Cat-sized?
no, like velociraptor size kind of thing.
Oh,
You know, they're
all right.
big. They're
Okay.
but they were
Chicken sized?
so. One of the scientists is saying something to the effect of, "This is impossible." Actually, I might be thinking of another paleontology news with I
Get it
am
straight,
actually.
Steve. Get it straight.
This is
man.
this is my other new thing I wrote about this week, which was a continuous toolkit of stone tools is 300,000 years older than we thought it was. Oh, you know, it's actually really interesting.
I know somebody who contributed to that paper.
All right, go ahead.
Oh,
Come
okay.
on, get to
but
the point.
but the scientists in referencing the data use the phrase "this is impossible." It's like, you can't say shit like
Oh,
that.
my God.
You cannot say stuff like that to a reporter because that's what they're going to quote.
That's going to be the headline.
Yeah.
It's not impossible because it exists. It's just not what we expected based upon our older inferences, which were based on spotty data. Which anyway, just
He should have said that's impossible.
And that's called media savvy.
yeah, it's media
And
savvy.
so many people out there don't have it. And when you see someone who doesn't
Bill
have
Gates
it,
does.
No, he does. But you
and
know,
he was trying. He was trying.
of course, they can pull
but he
anything
didn't.
out of there where they
but,
want.
but trying is not the same thing as bulletproof.
Yep.
He's fucking Bill Gates.
Yeah.
There are so many conspiracy theories swarming around him. Plus, he's got billions of dollars that he's donating. Whatever. He's a recognizable name. He has got to make. He's going to. And now he's putting out a manifesto where he says, "I'm going to get hate on both sides." He knows it. He should have made that thing fucking bulletproof.
He should have
I
run it.
agree.
He should have run it by you, Steve.
He
You know?
absolutely should have run it by me.
So yeah, and
Hey,
Somebody,
also-
ChatGPT.
He
Somebody.
called me and I told him to fuck off.
Oh, Jay, I told you to take that call.
And clearly, you know, the biggest tweeter in the world, or truther, we just won the war on climate change. This is Trump. Bill Gates has finally admitted that he was completely wrong on the issue. It took courage to
Oh.
do so, and for that we are all grateful, MAGA.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Oh,
that's
my God,
Trump's.
man.
That's his summary
view on
of
that.
climate change is real, and we should continue to, invest in the technology and policies to mitigate it. That's how he interprets
God
it.
damn.
So of course he takes the most extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's I think that what you're saying, Steve, is that it comes down to, like, in this case, he has the resources, and obviously he cares about this issue, so he's able to. So like he it's not like he doesn't have the personnel to basically make this thing bulletproof, right? As you say, Jay, and like at least like, they take out like these obvious things. It's really edited down. I mean, I don't know what his process is, but in something so politically charged, it has to be the case. Like, I'm sure that scientists who talk in any kind of field that's remotely like publicly controversial have learned this skill, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing when it's like people talking on a subject that like they're like, a lot of times, like you get a paper out, you're talking to your press people at the university, right? And you're like, okay, how do we put out a press release on this new paper? We want to put it out there. And you're working with the press person, like, can we say this? Can we say that? And you're like, no. And you sort of like kind of work with them, right? And if it's just like, it's like, because they're trying to sell it, because they put it out a press release, they want the news to pick it up because that's good for the university, right? And if you're responsible, you're like, no, I can't say that. But you sound like a stick in the mud to these people.
Yeah.
So if you've been working on this paper for 5-10 years, and you're like I'm saying you in the metaphorical sense, and I talk about me, it's easy for the producers, like, oh, can we say this in this colorful way? It's like, yeah, that's mostly right if you give it, and then all of a sudden that gets picked up by the press in a big way, right? And so it is incumbent upon us to be accurate, right? And first and foremost, that is totally true. But communication is a bit of an art, right? You have to use metaphor, and so there's this sort of this gray, murky area. But I think where it becomes a problem is when, like, the scientists themselves, they really want to just say how awesome something is. They'll talk about, this is impossible. They'll throw this out there, right? And if it becomes, and then it's picked up, and especially if it's something that's adjacent to a publicly controversial thing, like, my God, could you imagine if someone said something on an evolutionary science thing, is like, we are baffled by how this could possibly. The scientists don't generally say that. The headline writers do, but we
have no idea how this possibly could happen. It's like, you have to be careful.
Yep.
Just like, and so climate scientists were thrown into the political controversy. If you go back 30 years, They had no, I mean, when would a climate scientist talk to the media? Never.
Never.
They had zero media savvy as a discipline, basically. And then they had to learn over years, how to talk to and communicate to the public about climate science, because they were now at the center of this
Firestorm.
this firestorm of science denialism. So when they're shooting emails back and forth to each other and saying things like, "Oh, we got to hide the decline,"
Michael Mann,
there was no filter in there. It's like, how would a climate change denier misinterpret this?
Yep.
And so you have to have that filter in there. How could this be exploited, misinterpreted, abused? And Bill Gates has people around him that have this ability.
Yep.
This was just it was a little bit of a fail in that he didn't make it bulletproof, but on the other hand, I don't know if it's possible to say what he wanted to say
without,
and to make it bulletproof, because you have somebody who is so dedicated to misinterpreting what you're saying. It's I don't know that it's possible.
We're already at that point, guys, where it almost doesn't matter what anybody says, because if people want to spin something, they can do it. They don't need. Bill Gates could have just wrote that. Let's say he did it the absolute best that anybody could possibly ever do. He didn't,
but yeah.
But if he did do that, they could just still.
They'll still.
It doesn't matter because nobody's going back to the source anyway, right?
Yeah, and Steve, it might be impossible to make that as bulletproof as you might be implying, because.
But there was some headroom there.
Yeah, definitely some headroom. Ian, has Gates replied to that tweet?
He did push back. So there was
some
trying to kind of walk it back. Let me see if I have.
While he's looking, Christian, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, that's fine. So I see both elements here. That I think there's maybe you could do that a little bit better. But think about the climate science example. I mean, Michael Mann is basically turned into a demon publicly over his private emails back and forth with colleagues, right? Over university servers, so you can get access to it and things like that. But there's no reasonable person can live their life under that kind of scrutiny,
right? Yeah.
And if I find something defined, and as much as we are trying justifiably to self-critique and find ways that we are our best selves, so that we can publicly communicate in a way that is aware of these bad faith actors who are going to misinterpret what we say. The fundamental issue is that there is no accountability for the bad faith actors. Yeah. They can endlessly distort without any accountability as to what to say. They don't have that same. They don't have anything close to the same check on them.
Yeah,
and that's what we're fighting. So that's, I mean, obviously that's why why it's so unfair. And I think that short term, medium term, we have to clean up our language in these relevant fields. But man, we're against an ocean of disinformation, and until we have a check on that, we're going to be limited in what we can actually prevent.
Yeah. He basically just said it's a gigantic misreading of my memo. So that's his response to it. But
Trump got his soundbite, and that's all that matters.
Correct.
And the thing is, all Bill Gates had to do was exhale. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what he wrote. You could just say whatever he wants. We're way past what Christian was saying.
But he could have framed the whole memo better. He absolutely could have framed it better.
Sure.
He didn't have to say, "Oh, people on the left are going to get mad at me for saying that we need to pull back." He didn't need to even say any of that, because he said we should continue to do these things. He could have framed it more of, while we are doing this, let's not neglect.
Of course.
People who are currently starving or need to be vaccinated.
That could have been enough, maybe, not to get Trump to do what he did. But again, I go right back to what I was saying. They don't need that. We don't even need that layer in there, Steve, because the misinformation is so grand and so purposeful that it doesn't freaking matter anymore. Because without the accountability, there is no political accountability at all. The newspapers are not even publishing this shit.
Yeah.
They're no longer saying, "Wow, Trump misinterpreted everything that Bill Gates said," and that's not what's happening in our reality anymore. So it's kind of like a big nothing burger as far as I'm concerned.
I think every third sentence he should have said parenthetically, "Climate change is real, and we should fight against it as best as we could." Every third sentence, stick that in there. Maybe that would have helped.
Yeah.
But yeah, he could have done
Yeah,
better.
watermarked. Literally
Watermarked.
Watermark.
Climate change is real.
Just tattoo it to his face. That would have done it. Christian, let me ask you one more question, my friend.
Sure.
What do you got coming up in your life?
Oh my goodness! So in my life, so I'm on leave this term, which has been great. Some family leave. I think some good time off that I'm apparently not turning the time off. So I'm actually trying to do more public science communication. I keep trying to push out more videos of my lectures about humanoid robotics, and I got a few coming down the pipe. You can look up on my YouTube channel, just look up Christian Hubicki, or go to my website, christianhubicki.com. It should link you there. Next term, I'll be teaching a class in an applied optimal control for robotics and machine learning. That's what's on behind you. It is not just for artwork, although I think it's kind of pretty.
It is awesome.
My hope is to live stream the class. So that way anyone wants to join my lectures, they can.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to see that.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. But yeah. So I'll put that out there. And I generally, the way I like to approach my teaching is with as few prerequisites as possible. So you don't have to take like machine learning 1 or 2 to get to this, or linear algebra to get to my class. I try to make it pretty accessible. And in the spring, in like late February 2026, I will be on Survivor 50.
Yeah.
I guess I'm supposed to promote that. I will be on there.
I cannot wait.
I was thrilled that they thought of me. They had 750 players to choose from Survivor history, and they chose me to be on
Not
this
surprised.
landmark season. So
Well, you were wildly popular, at least in the novella houses. You were very popular.
many houses for sure.
Yeah.
Many houses. It was great.
I mean, it's such a cool. Thank you. It's such a cool experience. I mean, I talked with you about it when you were at Dragon Con 2023, and I talked a little bit about it. It's just, I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, like, not everyone's a reality TV person. I get it. I find it to be a fascinating game that you get to play on an island, and there's literally nothing else in your life to do but to concentrate on not getting voted out for X many days while you're starving. So in the meantime, you get to talk a little bit about science to camera and have and some of that makes air as public science communication. So I couldn't have been more thrilled to go.
Well, I'd like to bookmark you right now to when the show is done. I would love to have like a 3-hour live stream. Like, let's get into it.
Yeah,
if you're interested, I think that'd be a ton of fun.
I don't know how to shut up, as evidenced by today. We're already that's my fault.
If you're interested, you could watch Christian in season 37, David versus Goliath. That's a season he did a few years
very
ago.
good season.
A fantastic season. The only season Steve has seen, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. Liz and I have watched every season and your season multiple times. It's just you just kill it. So
Christian, can
so
you give us a
close.
link to your streamed classes if that is what you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what? Yes, absolutely. I'll send a link to you guys if that is what I do. And it's sort of the one-stop shop for anything me is christianhubicki.com. But yeah, I'll send it to you guys, of course.
Awesome.
So wait, there's one final question somebody sent in the super chat, if you don't mind. It could be short if you want to answer it.
Go ahead.
Where do you think robotics will be in 100 years, 1,000 years? Fully autonomous, self-3D printing Dyson swarm?
There is the Dyson swarm. There was a fun video on YouTube about Dyson spheres by Angela Collier, who's like a physics YouTuber, and she was talking about she delved into the history of Dyson spheres, and it's like, you guys realize Dyson wrote this paper as a joke. Yeah. It's a joke paper. He said so. He said this is ridiculous. And but when it comes to robotics, 100 years, 1,000 years, short answer is you don't know. But let's have fun. Let's have fun here. Yeah. I mean, at 100 years, I imagine we'd be at a point where these things are autonomous.
Yeah.
And I would imagine they are not humanoid shaped unless they really need to be. They're just in all different elements and different scales. Big robots that help move cruise ships or move container ships. Robots that are container ships. Little robots that move things from place to place. Robotic trains.
Mm-hmm.
I think that 100 or 1,000 years, our infrastructure is based around robotics.
Yeah.
Ian, I won't be alive to be wrong.
Christian,
you never know.
What we want are droids. When can I have R2D2 trolling around my house. That's what I want to know.
I believe you can go to the Star Wars, the Star Wars, what's it, theme park. You can buy one right now, Steve. I'm
But I want the full functionality of
the flying.
R2-D2.
You want the flying too?
Rockets.
Flying. Forget about the flying. I mean, yeah, you don't want as much. I adore.
He's got to
R2.
shoot a lightsaber out his ass.
He's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite droids, but the problem is he can't go upstairs. You know, so that's a big. It's a big
Give
problem.
me ramps, Jay, ramps. All right, C-3PO.
Yeah, I think Steve, you're on something with the little tiny robot dog. I mean, obviously those exist and they go up different things. I mean, like that's something in your house. That's something I feel like would be a lot safer because it's lower to the ground, not going to fall on things, and if you can overpower it easily.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you, Christian.
All right, thanks, Christian.
We'll talk soon. Keep us updated
Thanks,
with
buddy.
that live stream if it happens, and hopefully we'll see you at DragonCon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I will be there, even if these jamokes
We're thinking
don't
of
make
going
it.
next year. Yeah. So
Yeah, we'll let
Okay.
you know.
Well,
hook up.
I'm already in talks to go, so I look
All
forward
right.
to seeing you there.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
Fantastic.
Ciao, brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was fun.
I'll boot 'em.
Bye-bye.
And you guys are ditching.
We got to go.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right.
everyone's going.
We're outta here.
All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great
Bye.
day.
Bye.
Don't let Steve bother you.
Are we doing tickety tocks now? Yes.
will.
There's that. All right.
Goodbye,
that was
everybody.
Christian Hubicki. We're gonna move on to
That's
some
my seat cushion.
tickety tocks. There we go. Boom,
leave it
boom,
there?
boom.
Here, I'm just.
Hey there.
Oh, he's back.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you all for being patient with me.
Oh, of course. Thank you, Christian, for being here. Sorry, I kicked you before you got final words.
No, I know you got to do the TikTok live stream thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, just kicked me. I just want to say my goodbyes and I appreciate. Hope that go okay.
No, it was great. It was excellent. I mean, you're still live, just BT dubs, so you're out in the world. So people can.
Oh, out in the world right now?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
hello.
yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
because
I mean, I was confident that
Yeah.
that was great. I had utter confidence in everything.
Yeah,
I was
it was
saying.
perfect. No,
Nice chat.
it was a perfect stream.
Sorry about that, folks.
I know.
Sorry to jump in. I'm gonna say my goodbyes. All right.
Goodbye.
Hey.
Bye. Bye. We'll see you.
Bye bye.
All right. So now he's really gone.
Now he's really gone.
Yeah. Okay. That very nice guy, not freaking guy. Unlike what we will see shortly. Okay, so we got this one. Let me fix that. Oh yeah, we got the music. Hold on, stand by. Not that music. We got the hold music. Hold music. All right, stand by while I get this going, everybody. We got this. No, we got this. No. We're gonna do the bell and the. What the hell this thing is?
Yeah, the
Russian-
bell
The Russian.
and the Russian guy with the bacteria.
Yeah, with the bacteria. Let me close all these other things. All right, let me just check out the tickety tock. There we go. Ad block. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. What?
There's a bell that.
All right, we're almost there. We're getting there. We're getting there, chat. We're getting there. Don't worry. Okay, so that's working. We got this with full screen. All right, stand by, and I will rewind this.
It's been ringing nonstop for nearly 200 years, and nobody knows how. It's called. There's a bell that's been ringing nonstop for nearly 200 years, and nobody knows how. It's called the Oxford Electric Bell, and it's been going since the 1800s, right? So inside Oxford University, there's this little glass dome with two bells inside it, and between them a tiny little metal ball swings back and forth, tapping each bell over and over. And the crazy part, it's powered by two mysterious batteries that have never been replaced, and it's been ringing since around 1840. That's over 10 billion rings with no recharging, no maintenance. Nobody even knows exactly what those batteries are made of because no one dares to open it. They don't want to risk stopping the experiment, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Let me just fix this camera. Hold on, stand by, everybody. Boop, boop, boop. Boop. All right.
All right, so as is often the case with these sort of mystery mongering, videos, there's no real mystery here, but there is some cool science. So let's talk about that really quick. So yeah, this is real. There has been this electric bell that's been ringing since the 1800s for 180 years, I think is the total amount of time. It's driven by these two what are called solid piles, which is a type of battery. It's basically a chemical battery. One bell, the bells are sort of incorporated into the sort of circuit of the battery. So one bell is positively charged, the other bell is negatively charged. And you have a clapper, a conducting clapper in between them. So when the clapper touches the positively charged bell, it becomes positively charged. So that the two positively charged items repel each other, so it pushes it over to the other side. It hits the negatively charged bell, it becomes negatively charged, they repel each other, and the cycle continues. And that's been going at a frequency of about 2 hertz, two claps per second, for 180 years. How is that possible? A battery driving a piece of electronic equipment for 180 years? The thing is, when the clapper hits each bell, it takes only a tiny amount of electricity from the battery. It's really, really, really small, tiny amount. So that's why these two, battery piles, these two solid piles, haven't been exhausted yet, because it's using up only each cycle is using up only a really tiny amount of electricity. That's all. It's just math. There are light bulbs that have been burning for decades, because they don't use a lot of juice and they don't burn out the filament, right? So these really, really super low energy systems can last for a very long time. So again, there's no mystery here. We are not 100% sure about what the chemical structure of the batteries are. That's the only thing we don't know. And we don't want to go into the setup to find out. We also, for that reason, don't know exactly how long it will last. But eventually, the batteries will become exhausted. It will stop, and then we'll be able to go in there and see what those solid piles are made out of. So this is just science. There's nothing mysterious going on here.
All right, very good. Batteries. Battery. What the heck? Where did that one stop? Okay, hold on. Stand by. Let me just double check this. What's that? All right.
Hey, creepy magician, you're referring to the lion rampant flag. What are you referring to? Should that be lion with an E?
Lion.
Is that a generic lion rampant or a lion rampant? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Or maybe you don't.
All right, let's see. Let me get rid of this one. Boom. Move on to the next one. All
Gotcha.
Right. All right, here we go.
Okay. I guess it was Halloween when they recorded this episode.
Yeah, clearly it's a little goofy, but
Oh.
it's fine.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Have you heard of the Russian scientist who injected himself with a 3.5 million year old bacteria?
For fun? On a dare? For science?
For science.
Oh, okay, good.
So this Russian scientist named Dr. Anatoly Bravstok, they're digging in the permafrost in the tundra in Siberia, and they discovered this bacteria that was so far down in the permafrost, it went past the woolly mammoths. But guess what? This bacteria was still living.
Oh no.
But they tested this bacteria on mice, on plants, and the mice and plants lived way longer in the crop. They didn't die as fast when it was cold outside. They're calling it the elixir of life. They're saying that this thing could contribute to people, animals, and plants all living longer than they should. There's a town pretty close to where they found this bacteria, and the people of this town in Siberia live way longer than all the other people in the region. And so he was basically like, well, I want to try it on myself.
He's still alive?
Still alive. Have you heard of the...
I'm assuming they recorded that episode during Halloween. But anyway, let's delve into what they're claiming here. The first is that ancient, 3.5 billion year old bacteria was recovered from the ice and that it was reanimated. The bacteria was alive. Is that plausible? And the answer is yeah. That happens. The oldest bacteria that we've collected from and reanimated from the ice is 8 million years old. So 3.5 million years old bacteria is plausible. But the core claim here is that this bacteria is somehow causing life extension in mice and crops and possibly in people. So the Russian researcher injected himself with it. That's a very implausible claim because what would the mechanism be? Life extension is not an easy thing. So, but I can't say that it's impossible because we know nothing about it. We don't. It makes it much less plausible if it's in like plants and animals, because that would have to be wildly different biological mechanisms or something really fundamental. So that makes less sense, but maybe he's, you could say maybe he's wrong about the plants, but he was right about the mice or whatever. So we can't say for 100% sure. It's just a highly implausible claim. But the other thing is this is all coming from one researcher, right? This has never been replicated. So until something is replicated in science, it's basically not real. It hasn't been verified. We cannot take it as a given. If he were onto something, you would think that we would see some replications, that other researchers would pick up the ball and would carry it forward, or that he would be able to convince other researchers that he was onto something. He's still around, still alive, this guy, by publishing papers that are convincing, but that's not happening. We see this all the time where you have one researcher making highly implausible claims that does not get replicated, does not convince the research community that there's anything real going on, and those things almost never pan out. The probability that there's anything real going on here, therefore, is very small. But if there were, just, do some real compelling science and start to convince people. We're just not seeing that happen.
Alrighty.
All right, we're just doing 2 this week.
Yeah, that was the only 2
Yeah, that's fine.
We got. All right.
I am gone for the next 2 weeks, everyone. So I don't know. You guys gonna do the live stream without me?
We might do a Wednesday.
It won't be the
so much.
same.
We really need Steve. Come on. We might just eat bread. Just have
Right, you're just gonna do a
2-hour
whole
bread.
episode of Will It Bread.
Get
I'll
right.
be in Dubai. I'm giving a skepticism seminar and doing other stuff while I'm over there. So I'm gonna miss the next 2 weeks. But it doesn't. But Jay and Bob, and maybe you'll pull in a guest or something.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. I know there's
Yeah.
a lot of cleanup we have to do as we're prepping more and more.
Yeah, there's also a lot of work to be done in the studio. It's not a bad time just to do that. But we'll let you know.
Yeah,
But
we'll
don't
keep
be
you
surprised
posted.
if we take a week or 2 off.
Save all that stuff. We got so many things coming in and working on terabytes of data with this new podcast, which is coming out soon. The first couple episodes are like in the works in terms of editing.
Yep.
So,
The Political Reality
Political
podcast we have 4 episodes recorded already.
Yeah.
So as soon as we get the workflow, as soon as we get to the end of the pipeline, right, then they should be coming every week for a while. And we also have the latest season 3 of Alpha Quadrant 6. We've also recorded 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And again, they're also in the same pipeline, right? We have one editor who's doing all of those. As soon as they start coming out, they'll also be coming out every week. Probably will be a little gap over Christmas, and then we'll be picking up both again in January.
Yeah. Some more fun stuff. So if you haven't already, become a patron at patreon.com/skepticsguide. Help support us, and that also gets the numbers up, which leads us closer to that 24-hour live stream.
We're getting close, and I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, Steve will crack the whip. And
I
we
will absolutely
do
crack
that.
the whip.
All right, that's it. I think that's it. Thank you
All
everybody
right,
for
bye,
being here.
everyone.
Enjoy
Thanks,
the new
Ian.
outro for the TikTokers. Let's see if it's a little bit different. Yeah. Little fade out. All right. Oh, I forgot the music. All right, bye-bye.